We'll skip the introductions, actually. Let's get into the conversation. Everybody knows this forced doctrine already.
So that's why you end up with postmodernism and many of these other philosophies, which come from left-wing liberalism. Those aren't coming from...
We're going to have to make it, we're going to have to speed it up too. It's a long one, boys. It's an hour and 40-something minutes. So we're going to have to skip through it.
Right-wingers, those are coming from left-wingers. Right-wingers are the reason that they're so much more associated with things like traditionalism or things like religion, this kind of thing.
If we're allowed to watch, I don't even know if you can watch this on the live stream, and I may have to cut in constantly for the copywriting stuff. So I'll see. I don't know. YouTube will give me a warning or something.
It's because they view society as being duty-bound, and progressives view everything through the prism of rights. So I have a right to do this. I have a right to do this. I have a right to do that. And the right is saying you have a duty to do this. You have a duty to do that. You have a duty. So this is where that dialectic really clashes. From Destiny's standpoint, there's no such thing as a moral fact. None. They don't exist. Everything is dependent upon stance. So if that's the case, you can't actually do anything immoral, which is why he does so many things which are immoral, right? Because from his perspective, it's just dependent on stance. The right is saying there's universality with morality. It's not just stance dependent. It's stance independent. The reason that they get so upset with the left is because they perceive them as doing things which are horrendously immoral. But from the left stance, they're like, well, but it's all stance dependent. So I can't be doing anything immoral. And that's why the underpinnings for the kind of like philosophical pillars, they don't align, and why we're constantly clashing. The right considers these people complete immoral degenerates. And from their view, they are. The left, on the other hand, sees that as being totalitarian and evil, and that they're there to control, destroy, oppress. Because from their view, what could they be doing immoral if everything which is moral is dependent on their own stance?
Right. Which I think is an accurate description of what happens when the right looks at the extremes of the left and the left looks at the extremes of the right. But what I'm trying to get in with you, first of all, because it's interesting to me, because our country, hard as it is to believe, if you look at social media, is not nearly as divided as the US, right? Like the binariness of the US is kind of weird for us a little bit, coming from the UK. So I guess to me, it's always weird when people... well, I was going to say acknowledge, but I don't want to impose my view because, you know, Americans know their country better than I do. It's weird to me how little people give faith to the other side.
At Hag North Viking 6,584 donated $5. Don't worry when you see them making poor arguments, it will make you cut in anyway.
Okay, we'll see.
And I see this on the left, and I see this on the...
What was the timestamp you were recommending too? Can you write that in the chat?
Right. Whereas my model for the world is there's like really good people within the 80% middle, and then there's pretty out there people on the extremes. And what we see on the internet is those people arguing and pretending they represent the entire movement. And then the other side's incentivized to argue as if they represent entire movements as well. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Right.
Sure. I understand what you're saying. And that sells, right? It sells to be on that extremist end.
Right.
That's what makes it fun. It makes it fun to watch people who come in and they say ridiculous over the top things and then everyone's arguing, right? That's part of human nature. They want the fun. However, I do think that people are more divided than you think. I think that there's the way that we operate in public in survival mode, we'll be pretty nice to each other. Good morning. How are you? No one's going to like run you off the road because you're a Democrat. They might run you off the road if you're a Trump supporter and you have that stick. But for the most part, we'll treat each other fairly well. But when you start to get to the underpinnings of what people actually believe, there's a lot more hatred here than you think on both sides. And it's even from the center. It becomes apparent once you start to get to the underpinnings of the pillars which hold up people's beliefs.
Do you think that's kind of why there used to be a rule that you don't talk about religion and politics at the table? Because when you start digging, like if you really pursue people's beliefs to the very ends of the earth, you do find out like people do fundamentally disagree because they have a different philosophical view. But if we don't constantly talk about this stuff, it's actually easier to get on with each other.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, that used to be a thing in the workplace, and it used to be a thing, like you said, around the dinner table with family. You call your family in, and it's like, hey, we're all going to have dinner. We're not talking politics. We're not talking about sex. We're not talking, right? These are the divisive issues, right? Love, sex, politics. And of course, that's what everybody's talking about all the time now. But with the internet, this was bound to happen. Now you can have ideologies which are exported and imported, and they can be exported and imported quickly. And so because of that, you can have whole swaths of a population begin to move towards an ideology which they never would have before because there was no way to basically deliver it. But now there is. And so now it's a race for power. It's made the best ideology win. And from my view, if it's not Christians who win it, then it's going to be somebody else who wins it. And Christians going to be ruled by whoever that is.
Yeah, but that's just a battle of ideas, right? So we want a free market to discuss things. And so if Christianity can't weather the storm of open ideas and it ends up losing, then yeah, from Wilson's point of view, that's a bad thing because Obviously, he upholds Christian morality in society. So then the argument becomes, well, Christians have to do better to convince everybody else of their argument. What the leftists try to do is censor online discussion of the right and everything else. So what happened was, in a sterile environment, leftist ideas win the so-called battles of speech online. But when you take them out of their own sanitized environment and you test them against rightward or right-leaning politics or ideologies, lifestyles, they start to crumble. The hypocrisy gets called. You know, what is a man? What is a woman? A man can become a woman. Stuff like that they sell themselves. You know, this is a human construct. This isn't. Well, the right says, well, no, actually, there is a man and a woman because what's in between your legs? Can men give birth to children? You just ask them very simple questions like that. It completely folds their entire worldview. This is why the left can't survive scrutiny. This is why the left gets extremely violent when scrutiny is applied to their worldview, because you're tearing down somebody's identity, their worldview. That is a threat to their ego directly. The right survives this kind of back and forth discussion and disagreement because they're more open-minded. If you can give them information that's grounded in truth or fact, they will then move their position slightly. There are things they won't agree on that are set in stone, but most of the time, the right is pretty malleable and open to changing their minds. You're not going to change their minds on saying like abortion is not murder. That's just a firm line that they hold because that's a human being. It is a child in their eyes, and abortion is murder, more murder, period. We're taking a human life away. Who are you to pass that kind of judgment and have that kind of power over a soul? Only God does. So those arguments are set in stone. But to talk about other topics that aren't as inflammatory, a conservative would move on some of those. A leftist won't. A leftist is literally like, you're a Nazi if you don't believe what I believe. If you question what I have to say, you're a far-right Nazi. You're a white supremacist. You're a whatever. The left doesn't move to the center. The left only moves further left. So they're stuck in kind of a purity spiral. This is what the Democrats in the United States are struggling with right now with the left, is that they've moved so far to the left that the progressives are no longer progressive enough, that they now have a radical left wing that is the loud minority that is asking for beyond progressive policies from the Democrats that completely make them untenable on the national stage when compared to a Republican. That could be milquetoast and, vanilla in all his positions. It seems like that person's the sensible one when the other one is trying to get your kids to undergo like gender assignment surgery and stuff like that. So the left, at least the leadership of the DNC, has started to recognize they can't win national elections appealing to a small radical left wing in their party. But those conversations, they've been fomenting and growing them through online censored platforms. And now that got basically burst open, starting with, you could say, Elon buying X, that their narrative and worldview has completely collapsed on themselves. And now those are no longer popular to talk about because they never were. We were just held hostage by a small percentage of people that were supposed to be the new, like, God's chosen, walking amongst us. Like, oh my God, look at this brave dude that cut his dick off. It's like, no, you have a mental problem.
Whatever ideology that is. But if you think that I'm wrong, explain Hassan Piker, explain Vosh, explain the rise of communism in the United States and the brand new communist lens in which many leftist progressives are now looking. These are the most popular streamers. Well, I mean, that ideology was all but dead, but now it's reemergent through the technology of the internet and introduced to a whole new generation as being edgy and, countercultural, just like it was
Yeah, but Hassan isn't even, he's a champagne socialist at best. So these fucking guys spew about communism. They never lived under a communist system. Yours truly has. My family has in Romania, behind the Iron Curtain. I can tell you that communism will lead to the destruction of the United States 100%. These socialist policies will absolutely bankrupt the United States, and it will lead to worse outcomes. The answer is not socialism or communism. The answer is just reining in some of the worst aspects of capitalism, the predatory side of capitalism, and having some nationalist, policies that are socialist in nature combined with capitalism. Protect the people, protect the workers. It's not commie shit to have strong unions. It's not commie shit to make sure that every normal man earns a living wage, true living wage that allows them to have a wife that could stay at home and 2 kids and the white picket fence. There should be protections for our natives, our countrymen. That's not socialist, commie bullshit. That's just common sense. Where our strongest is our weakest link. Where the commies actually take that shit super far is, we have to reappropriate wealth completely. We're going to just take it away just because we want to take it from the top and just redistribute it to the bottom. Well, how are you going to redistribute it? The way California redistributes it, by pouring millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions to a homeless problem that only seems to grow the homeless problem because it's just a money siphon. It doesn't actually solve homelessness. The drug epidemics in like San Francisco where they give the homeless people drugs, or all the other social programs that they've instituted that has been wrought with fraud. So no, we don't want to pay taxes for a corrupt champagne socialist that enriches themselves and impoverishes everybody else, but will virtue signal to the rest of us that he's for the common man. This is what these cocksuckers do, Hassan and all these other people. They are champagne socialists. He drives a car worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, living in a house worth millions of dollars, multiple millions, in a gated community away from fucking poors, away from immigrants, away from all the fucking insane crime on the streets. He gets to live in the gated community with heavy police force presence and security, telling you about capitalist and socialist policies when the capitalist system gave him the beautiful, nice, quiet, safe life that he's living under. These people are full of shit. Don't take any information from these commie cocksuckers. I like that one saying, the best communism or the best communist is a dead communist. Fuck them, all of them. Every single one of them. My family lived through that shit. It's like in my blood to hate communists and the stories of the things that they've done and the wealth they stole from the people. This so-called communism. We didn't get to do communism right. Yeah, the fuck right, dude. The Soviet Union, the entire satellite state system that they had, that was communism done right with a power that could defend itself. And it turned out into shit and collapse. And the very people were working jobs that couldn't afford to feed themselves. They had bread lines, milk lines, egg lines, odd even road driving based on your license plate or your gender. You want to wait in line for fucking bread, for flour? You want to wait in line to get eggs? Get the fuck out of here, bro. These communist retards. Death is all they deserve. They're fucking ridiculous. I don't mess with any of you. You've never lived in the system and you don't know what it's done to the psyche of the people until you go visit these areas. Not a single person with one fucking brain cell that's functioning ever would push communism ever again. I'd rather sign up and kill them domestically in America. If should the military want or need, I would sign up to fucking eradicate them. It's just something deep in my veins. They stole my family's wealth. They stole it out of the ground, literally appropriated it for the state. I have a nasty history with these cocksuckers.
First time.
Do you not think that the reason that we've seen this resurgence of communism as someone who comes from a country who sadly embraced it?
Britain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's not, we are
I should laugh at
embracing.
my own joke, but it was a good one.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we are embracing it, which is Venezuela. Do you not just simply think that people grasp for anything when things are getting particularly difficult?
You mean for any type of ideology?
Yeah.
Sure, but what's difficult here?
Well, the gap between...
At Hag North Viking 6584 donated $5. The Twitch commies will be censored by the Politburo. The issue is they will make us all suffer with them.
Exactly. They think they're going to benefit from that shit. They won't. They won't. Because the real people in charge are still greedy cocksuckers that want ultimate power, influence, money. You think people like Hassan and Destiny are going to benefit from this system because you're a mouthpiece? Bro, you're going to get lined up against the fucking wall. You're a degenerate. The communists will do purges for loyalty. You think you're going to be loyal when you can't live your capitalist lifestyle anymore? You're too visible. You're too rich. You have too many things. You can't tell the people about the wealth inequality and the class warfare when you have millions of dollars. It doesn't look good. You're flaunting your wealth. You've already flaunted it. You're targeted for fucking execution. They have no idea. They think that they will be allowed to survive. Please, bro. The leaders will look poor, but live in secret mansions. Every communist has done that shit. The leader himself will live in a big mansion, the people's mansion. Look at Romania, what the communists did there. If you don't know, the largest building in the world, it's now the second largest, I think, by size, but it's the heaviest building in the world. It's one of the two. It's the number one heaviest building in the world. It's bigger than the fucking Pentagon of the entire United States defense military industrial complex. It's called the People's Palace. Go look it up. People died to build this shit. It's made of like all marble. The People's Palace. Look at this shit. We'll just put it up here. You guys don't believe me. The People's Palace, bro, is so fucking large, and most of it is just empty. This was the guy's house. This fucking building. Look at this. This is communism for you. Where's that image? I want it big. Dude, the inside of this place looks fucking great. Like ballrooms everywhere, marble decked out, like opulence you would never see in a poor country. Give me an image, bro. That looks like shit. But still, this place is massive. Standing next to this shit is fucking... We gotta find a better picture. Pictures are ass. There you go. This place is huge, dude. I remember when I went to visit here when I was in Romania, it's fucking obscene, dude. It's absurd. This is the guy's house. The guy's house now houses the entire Romanian government. That was just his home. Communism for you. Why everybody else is living off fucking poverty levels of sustenance. The commies. I'm telling you, the people, it's like gargantuan next to every other building. I mean, fucking hell. Is there more photos of this shit? Dude, just stupid. Look at the size of this thing. Crazy. People have no idea. They live in some weird, like in the interior, guys. It's just, you can see what the interior looks. It looks fucking stupid. Look at this. That was the ex-dictator's home. And he gutted the country to build it. He basically made everybody eat fucking air so he could build this shit. That's what's crazy. Of course, Google doesn't even work anymore. Bro, just open the image for me. That doesn't look like shit. Google, you fucking suck. We can't even see this in quality. Every single room essentially looks like this. The most insane building ever. I bet you it's on YouTube, the People's Palace in Romania. Watch. Just so you can get the ridiculous of this shit. Because Google's fucking garbage at showing us images. Yeah, heaviest building in the world. Mm-hmm.
Within the entire as lucky.
Okay, music. Can't watch that.
Just before we get died in Nationalist was a junior.
Talking head, bro. Somebody show me this shit. Okay.
Did you know there's a building so massive?
Music again. Yeah, we can't watch shit on YouTube. It is what it is. Inside Romania's monument to megalomania. Yeah, this is his building.
Ciao, Shesko. 1980s and side entrance. But we've been working all day to get into this.
This fucking thing's huge. Is he gonna go inside?
When his country was hungry.
Look at what the interior looks
In
like,
fact,
bro. This
he
is
built
fucking
this
insane.
To the basic impoverishment of tens of millions of Romanians. And today, this is a ballroom. And if you can imagine being a dictator with your friends here, your corrupt big shots, waltzing.
That's like one room of, I don't know how many. How many rooms does this have? People's Palace, Romania facts. Second largest by area, world's heaviest and largest administrative building. Spans 365,000 square meters. It's 12 floors above ground, 8 underground levels, including a nuclear bunker. It was built by over 20,000 workers operating in shifts of 24/7 with thousands of casualties during its construction. It was built with 1 million cubic. What the fuck? 3,500 tons of crystal? I didn't even know the crystal one. So tons of marble, tons of steel and bronze. He called it the House of the Republic, of course, or the People's House. Like, it's spitting in your face. It now houses the Romanian parliament. Listen to this shit, 70% of the building remains unused. 1 million cubic fucking, that's the most, how much, is that the most marble in one building? 1 million cubic meters of marble. Is that it? That's crazy. It's 23 section. Facts rooms. How many ballrooms and shit like that does it have? Okay, here we go. It has over 1,000 rooms, 1,100 rooms, over 2,800 chandeliers, huge hand-woven carpet, with one carpet weighing 14 tons. The Union Hall, out of one of the most massive rooms with the ceiling designed to open for a helicopter. Come on with this shit. Contains 3 museums, an international conference center, and the 2 chambers of the Romanian parliament. What the fuck? Built with local materials. Almost all the building materials were sourced from Romania to showcase the country's self-sufficiency. Cool story, bro. If you're ever in that part of the world, go see the People's Palace. It's fucking stupendous. 1,100 rooms filled with thick marble columns, staircases, and crystal chandeliers. This shit is like, it leaves you speechless, dude, what it looks like in here. This is like some Roman Empire shit after a successful conquest, and that didn't happen. The dude was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to build the most insane building in the world. Only the Pentagon is going to rival this shit. Holy crap. Yeah, I don't know how many ballrooms it has and all of this. It's insanity. Look at the pictures, dude. Dude, this is beyond king shit right here. This is like supreme leader of Earth. Look at this. What is that? Under communism. What even is that? Look at the amount of marble here. Oh, it never ends, dude. Insane shit, dude. The design is insane. It just goes on and on. 1,100 rooms. You literally get lost in here. Look at the column. Look at this architecture. At least this is this stuff looks crazy. At least you could say intergalactic levels of glazing. Trump would love this place. Yeah, Trump should have been trying to move into this bitch. Like, this is crazy. Dude, the level of opulence is just, and detail to everything. Like, kudos to Romanian engineers and builders, because this is testament to what they were able to accomplish. Like, this looks ridiculous by any age and day standard whatsoever. This is stupendous shit. Live stream, yeah. The consequence. Look at this, man. This is shit you see in a church. The stained glass. Incredible, dude. It just goes on and on. Like, what a flex. Can you imagine inviting heads of state to this? Like, oh, where are we going? Fuck some shitty little country, Romania. And then you pull up to the dude's palace and you just get stunted on while everybody else is like fucking subsisting on flour every other day. Godly, dude. Yeah, communism. Cool. Look at this. An amphitheater. Because why not? Why not? Perfect. Holy shit. Thanks, Eduardo.
At Agami 999L2 donated $5. Have you heard of Karlin Borisenko and her deep dive into modern communism and socialism?
No, I haven't. Email me a video of that. I'd like to see that. Dude, it goes on and on. This place is insane. You have to see it for yourself. Like, pictures don't do this kind of shit justice, because the sheer scale can only be felt in person. To walk across stairs that look like this, like the stairs alone is the most expensive thing your body will ever touch. Like the columns, this is just a flex on what Rome did to Dacia. He's like, watch me. Watch me. We're going to do it better. The Roman Empire is gone, but we're not, bitch. I'll sacrifice my entire country to get this building built. Fucking hell. That shit's crazy. Do they have another? I think they had another, what was it? A part 1. Here's the part 1. Fucking massive. Stupendous, dude. This is them going, preparing to get inside the building. Oh, is this the largest Orthodox church in the world now? Yeah, it will be the largest in Romania. I think this is the largest Orthodox church. What is it with Romanians and making grand shit like this? I believe this is the largest Orthodox church in Romania. Oh, I walked past this house all the time. What the fuck? I didn't know. Okay, of course. Look at all this grand architecture and shit. Very nice. I don't know what that is. I walked past that too, but okay. Cool. The streets of Bucharest. Both cool and depressing. Let's see. Largest Orthodox Church, Romania. I think they finished building that too. Yep, the People's Salvation Cathedral. Of course. It's the largest Orthodox church in the world, and it just opened, yeah? Christ. It cost 200 million euros. It holds 6 to 7,000 people. It's the monumental project designed to symbolize Romanian spiritual unity. Look at what this bad boy, oh my Lord, looks on the inside. Phew. Hey, Romania is like 99% religious. Look at this, dude. Hey, you Orthodox brothers, you want to go out there and see some real cool shit for Orthodox Christianity? Go on out and head to Romania. Look at that. The amount of monasteries in the mountains and cool churches like this will blow you away, dude. It'll reawaken your spirit. I'm telling you. It's absolute. It's like a stupendous marvel. When you see some stuff like that, orthomaxing, that's no joke. Hey, man, it does something to you. It does something to you walking into places like this. When I was walking in those monasteries, I felt something. I was like, whoa, dude. There's something beyond the physical realm in and around here. And you kind of feel something different. Seeing all the nuns and stuff. This place looks crazy. Look at this. The scale is just the magnificence. Yeah. Romania is not getting taken over by Islam anytime soon. Let me tell you. That's a Western Europe problem. Eastern Europe is going to be good for a long time. Pretty chill. Although the church is corrupt, unfortunately. Hey, I wanted a giant donut. What the fuck? Okay. All right. Romania history lesson over. Let's go back to the communists.
Rich and poor as ever.
Actually, hold on.
At Hagnartha Viking 6584 donated $2. The Roman DNA makes them want to build large.
Probably, right? Leftover blood memories. Everything must be grand.
Widening.
But you have a problem there, right? That's true. But people are still getting richer than they've ever been. It's like when I think of a gap between rich people and poor people, if we go back 500 years or 1,000 years, the difference was you lived in a dung heap and this guy lived in a castle. Now the difference is this guy lives in a castle and you live in a 3-bedroom apartment. It's like, it is true that the guy living in the castle is richer than the guy in the castle has ever been. But the reason you're not in a dung heap is because the poor are also richer than they've ever been. And so it's scalable. It's a matter of scalability. But show me in the fattest country in the world, where's all the starving people? Where are they?
But it's all understood within context, isn't it, Andrew? It's comparisons. So people will go online, they will look at their life, they will see that they don't have a lot of money, somebody else is doing very well. Things like, for instance, a housing crisis, particularly in cities like New York, LA, etc.
Yeah, so this is a strict materialist view. The thing is like, I don't know when this shift happened to strict materialism, but this seems to be
60s.
Part of a...
60s to 70s. When the hippies came on the scene, they started changing, the American consciousness started changing after the hippies and shit.
A new conversation which people want to have. And again, that's part of what communism is. The lens of communism is strictly materialist. There is no spiritualism. Communists kill anybody who's religious because that affects a materialist view. It's an oppression.
And it seems counterintuitive because you would think they're very spiritual, but what they rejected was the church. They rejected organized religion. They started getting much more individualist in their spirituality. And then that started to bear out this weird leftist take of the system, bro. Like the boomers would be like, we're anti-system. And then the boomers started taking mushrooms and they took that anti-system mentality, that rebellious youth that they had against the greatest generation that ever lived and the institutions that they created for the boomers to thrive. The boomers started tearing them down. And so now we live in a world, a post-boomer world, where they've torn down the institutions because you hear it all the time in the way boomers and the Karens and shit speak. And they're the ones that instituted these ideas in the colleges of, racial inequality, opportunity, of outcome, all that shit, equality of opportunity, equality of outcome, systemic racism, shit like that. It's like the boomers went on this massive bleeding heart, liberal, like mental rager post mushroom trip. And now we're all living in that stupid ass world. Because bro, okay, peace in the world, bro. No wars, bro. We're just here, man. Listen, man, We just want to get along, man. We're all the same, man. It's just people versus government, man. And they fucked everything up. The generation before them made this system and its institutions, and they function as a guardrail to make sure our society keeps thriving. And then it was turned down or tore down by these people who thought they had better ideas, that they were more awakened than their predecessors. Big fucking mistake.
Oppressed class. So if you're looking through everything from a materialist view, you can always find an oppressor class. There'll always be people who have more than other people do. It's one of the big faults with communism. You can never reach this stateless utopia. But as far as that goes, when I think historically, the endless suffering that happened to people inside of nation states, inside of city states, inside of places like that, in comparison to what you see in modern Western democracies, it's like if these people had to deal with that in any capacity, they would, you just fall over dead. It was miserable. It was literally misery. Where is all of that? I mean, the West conquered that. Industrialization conquered that. The starvation's gone. Where is it? You know, I've heard liberals, they've said to me, there's people starving right now. Where? In my nation. Where? I'll go feed them right now. Guarantee you I'll have a meal arranged by this afternoon if you could show me a person who's actually starving in the United States. They can't, because they're not. We've conquered it. These are conquered issues. Like, so what are you bitching of? Are you just bitching that this guy makes way more money than this guy? It's like, what's the complaint? You know, that's achievable. That sort of dream's achievable now to people. That never used to be possible.
I travel a lot, and until recently, every trip started the same way, standing in an
The desperate hope that it's going to somehow make everything better. I don't agree with it, but I think that's the argument.
Well, I think it's more complex than that.
So maybe we're having this conversation the wrong way around. Why do you think there's been a rise of radical leftism and particularly the appeal of...
Yeah, so somebody's asking, weren't you happy in the last episode about executive order with psychedelics being trumped out? Yes, of course. I'm not saying to destroy institutions. I'm saying to use them as a mental health aid. I'm saying to use them to put you in better spirits, to crush depression, to help you with anxiety, to open your mind to creativity. I don't think the world we have is wrong. I don't think the systems that our forefathers built need to be reinvented. I think they need to be preserved and maybe slightly improved upon for the modern world, modern technology, things where they have obviously been cast aside because the time's need for evolution. But why do we have open borders that was solved before us, multiple generations before us? Why do we have this bleeding heart liberal democracy mentality where blacks and browns are too dumb, too stupid, too something to make their own decisions? So the white liberals think that they should help them, baby them, and treat them with different outcomes, different standards, and create a second class for them in society, how they should be treated, right? 60 arrest on a guy, he gets let out. Why? Because he was black. Why? Because systemic oppression. It's not his fault. That's stupid. We need to hold everybody accountable to the same standards. That's equality. Not giving people special privileges, not giving women special privileges just because they're women, LGBTQ special privileges. But the society that was wrought in was essentially a egotistical people thinking they can do much better. I'm advocating on a personal use. People should, I'm not even going to say should, people can do what the fuck they want with their bodies. I'm for choice. If I want to eat a mushroom, I'll eat a mushroom. Get your fucking boot off my neck and mind your goddamn business. If you want to smoke a cigarette, you can smoke a cigarette, but you will deal with the consequences. If you get lung cancer, that's your fucking fault. That's all I'm saying. Educate people. Here's what happens if you smoke cigarettes. We had a great education campaign in the 70s and 80s, and guess what? Almost nobody smokes in the United States anymore compared to other countries. Now, people started doing stupid shit like vaping, gay as fuck. So now you got people vaping with nicotine, so they're back to basically smoking, and the vape juice is as bad, if not worse, because half the time it's tainted with some shit. So you look like a fucking homo vaping your gay juice. Anyways, you're a goy. So yeah. Educate people. This is why you shouldn't do this. But you can if you want to, because we treat you like an adult. It's that simple. I want to be treated like an adult, like someone who has a stake in this system. Not like I'm retarded and needed my hand held for every little fucking thing. Can't smoke, can't step there, can't do that. Let me breathe, you fucking pussy. Did you know in like Oregon, you'll get arrested if you collect rainwater from your property? Land of the free, home of the brave? If you collect water on your property, the state will arrest you. Multiple people have been arrested already just collecting water in drums on their own property from rain. Who fucking put that rule? Why is that even a thing? Think about this for a second. Our founding fathers would have turned this fucking system upside down if they heard some shit like that. You're going to arrest me for rain? Hey, bro, that is encroachment by a tyrannical government. So when are we waking up here? Just wondering, America. I'm not a libertarian. No, I wouldn't consider myself a libertarian. I have more authoritarian aspects to what my worldview would be, but it's very strict in the way it's applied, more like law and order.
Of communism now, as you do see with some young...
I don't believe in the whole libertarian, like, oh, just live and be free and get the government out of your way, but then the government has very little duties to maintain society. I would say I'm a believer, and this is not libertarian, I'm a believer that government should absolutely engineer the national identity, the cultural norms. I don't believe in this just do whatever you fucking want and have your own identity. You can fuck off. We're in a collective. This society, we all have to live together. If you have to live with somebody, you have to have certain decorum, respect, standards, shit like that, in order for us to both have a good society. So I want a government that crushes minority groups and their identities. Specifically their identities. It has to be a one culture, one law, one standard of application, one identity. Now, you can have different ethnic people living in your country, but for the most part, you must adhere to one identity and culture, and it will always be whatever the predominant preceding culture is. That's it. So America would have to absolutely institute whatever white American, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant energy, rugged individualism, the things that made the country great initially must be brought back in, ruthlessly applied to everyone living today. If you come from Somalia and you fly your Somalian flag, you're going to jail. You're going to go do hard labor and go build ditches and shit, dig ditches. If you come to this country, for some reason, you're allowed to come because the borders would be closed in this system anyways. And we're only bringing in people that test really high on IQ or have specialized talents that we need. But if you got into this country and you rep wherever you came from, you're going back. Straight to fucking jail for you. Talk shit about America, straight to fucking jail for you. It is what it is. You're a foreigner. You came here, you assimilate. Yeah, we're not diluting the nation. You have to adhere to, you're eating your fucking what? You're having your mustard on your hot dog and you're going to go to your baseball game. And I don't give a fuck that you came from some country straight out the bush. If you manage to get in here, you now eat hot dogs, bro. You now go watch baseball. You now go shop at Costco. You now eat the same exact food Americans eat because you must assimilate one-to-one perfectly into what it means to be an American. And that exact identity must be enforced by the state. This come into the country, be whatever you want to be. Carve out your own community here and there. There's little Italy there. There's little China here. There's Japantown there. Fuck you with all that stuff. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah, I would bring, I'm just saying. If I had supreme leader powers, well, you would know right away what it means to be an American. That would be based on the founding fathers' image and their values. And anybody who does not live up to those, you're going fucking back. It's that simple. Yeah, and say the goddamn pledge every morning. I don't care. Oh my God, it's like we're brainwashing the kids. Don't care, bro. The moment you walk in the classroom, when the bell rings, everyone stands up. You put your hand on your heart and you recite the pledge. It is almost like Starship Trooper-like, a little bit of sprinkle of fascism in that sense. But that's what it takes for a nation to survive. This must be, we're too big. We've never had such a society of a country of this massive proportion to hundreds of millions of people. This is a new system we're living under. It requires a different kind of governance where we're no longer close together. There's neighborhoods so far away, states so far away that our connection to one another is being lessened. And so we have to maintain national cohesion, a national identity. That means crushing everything and everyone that does not represent the American ideal. Doesn't matter where you come from, your religion, your skin color, anything. If you don't represent the American ideal, you must be crushed out of existence by the long dick of the law. It's that simple. When you make it that stringent, I guarantee you everybody's going to be walking around outside repping red, white, and blue. God bless America, greatest country on earth. Streets will be safe. Cities will be clean. Criminals will be in jail. And people will fucking act right. But you know, these liberals, these libertarians, get out of my business. Well, it's like, go fucking live in the middle of the woods then. Institute your retard policies away from us.
Yago King donated $2. DARE. Taught me that drugs are really expensive.
Ah. It's easier to find drugs today than healthy food in stores. Isn't that crazy?
At Hag North of Viking 6584 donated $5. It will only work with intermarrying or a powerful paternal state, aka the Republic must fall, and a general proclaimed Caesar.
In essence, you can still have a system that works in a republic style, but not everybody gets the vote. So we have to take everybody's ability to vote away. And the only people that can vote have skin in the game. Like a woman with 4 kids, for example, she gave birth to 4 kids, or a man that owns property, land, all that stuff, or pays into taxes past a certain amount, or has served in war and combat in the military, signed up, or, you know, things like that. And the leaders of the country can only be voted in by that small base of people. So they must be capable. If we have a system like that, where we don't pander to the lowest common denominator, the lowest common voter across the entire country, you can institute a system that works better than the one we currently have. Yeah, well, it's not a republic anymore. America lost the republic a long time ago. That's the problem. We have to bring the republic back. That's why Rome was at its most stable and best when it was still a republic. Once the empire came, that was the beginning of the end. It still ascended based on the greatness of the republic. But by the time Augustus came into power, he had to institute pro-natalist policy. So the elites, the soldiers, what made Roman people Roman, that culture was already degrading by the time Augustus took power, right after Caesar. If that's the case, then Caesar was a symptom of a declining Rome, not an ascendant Rome. Now, some of the leaders that came after Caesar obviously managed to take it to new heights by territory and shit like that. But if you probably lived in those times and you asked a Roman what it meant to be Roman, what Rome represented, what the ideals of Rome were, the republic before Caesar, before the tumultuous period where Caesar could take power, was much closer to what made Rome powerful than what came after during the emperor age of Rome, the Roman Empire. So I see the decline in the United States right now in a similar fashion. We're great now, still, because of what we were, what our grandparents' culture and great-grandparents, the founding fathers, and the initial colonies and the expansion out and Monroe Doctrine and all that shit. That's what made this country uber powerful. We're living off of their hard work, their mentality, their technological progression, their rugged individualness. We have a society right now, fucking soys, weak people, foreigners, corrupt politicians. The country's being looted. The country's being destroyed from the inside out. We're beholden to foreign interest groups. Country's subverted. It's not serving the people. Shit like that is the empire's falling. The American empire's on the decline. Somebody would look at the empire today from 1,000 years ago, or 1,000 years into the future, for example, and may say America's peak was in 2026. It went to war with Iran. It's subdued Iran eventually, and that was the extent of the American trading empire in the world. And you can say shit like that, but we as the people that were living in these times, we saw the gradual cultural degradation of society. We saw the streets becoming unsafe. We saw the political instability that led to a Trump being elected in the first place, not a real statesman. That's what we see. The Romans probably felt the same shit during the Republic as it was transitioning into an empire. And they had their first, emperor. I was going to say, we peaked in 1913, World War I, fucked everyone over.
Eduardo Tyke, Sarah donated $10. See this video, why everybody blamed the boomer. Now it explains all the measures implemented by the silent generation to protect society from the modernism, and explain how the boomers gradually destroyed it for profit.
Why everybody blames the boomers now? Email me that, please. I don't want to lose my spot with all these tabs.
At Madladdies donated $5. People coming into America will need re-education before being let in.
Yeah, that would help, certainly. We don't hold anybody to a standard that comes into this country, man. So they have no need to assimilate. So now you have a country that's a democracy, which is ruled by whoever the majority is that has power, or whoever forms a coalition with the other smaller groups. It's not really democracy. It's tyranny now. It's a vie for power down racial lines. People will vote because they're white. Others will vote because they're Hispanic. Others because black. Others because Asian. And then it's what groups align with the other groups to hold on to power versus the other ones. So, yeah, America's being carved out from the inside out, unfortunately. And it's turning into ethnic enclaves. It's ungovernable. And I talked about this in the private community, I think yesterday with the guys. This country is going to end into either a civil war or it's going to break apart like Yugoslavia did, because you can't convince a Texan in the future because of the massive political shift between right and left. It's a complete divorce of the country. You don't even see them as you're an American. Like a Texan will look at a Californian and tell you that they're not real Americans. They're some lefty, loony, communist, something like that. When you speak like that out in the open about your fellow countrymen, like your country's already going down that decline. There will be a split. Either it'll be a civil war, and I believe one day it may end up being a civil war because we're going to end up going bankrupt from all these wars. We'll have too much debt. We can't service it. The country will become ungovernable as it gets browner and browner because the people coming have no indication that they want to assimilate into American values. They're seen as corrupt and garbage. So the white population will keep losing more and more power until they no longer have the majority say. So America will be governed by a nation of immigrants and very recent immigrants. And what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a divorce in the people of, we want to govern ourselves because the areas that you guys govern look like shit, like the countries you came from. A civil war will maybe happen, hopefully not. But let's just say in this scenario, should a civil war happen in the United States, it won't end like the last one did where one side gives up and you simply walk away and the country reunites. It just reformulates into the new America where one team gets to essentially impose its rules and order on the others. There are nations now like Russia, like China, the international population, global countries in general, other powers that want to see certain sides win, right? Maybe the South rises up against the North. Let's just say that. Who cares? It could be the West versus the Midwest versus the Central of America versus the Northeast and those liberals and whatever. It doesn't matter, whatever faction. Certain countries will arm certain factions. And when those factions win, it's not going to be a ceasefire when they have an advantage and will balkanize. Like, you know, it's a potential that we just balkanize and America breaks up into multiple countries, essentially, loosely trading with each other. But what will happen is, you know, China's going to get involved and arm a side that's pro-China. Russia will get involved and arm a side that's pro-Russia. Whatever side ends up winning will completely overrun the other. So, yeah, because when the American Civil War first happened, yes, sides were getting helped by European powers, but once America reconstituted, it wasn't like there was another challenger to America right then and there. It wasn't like there was another nation that could subvert all of America and have that kind of influence. Like if we get into something like a civil war, dude, China is big enough, influential enough, has enough materials. They can arm one side and have them completely overrun the other. In essence, what I'm saying is other countries can now stick their nose in much more efficiently, effectively, and control outcomes. Before in those days when America had the Civil War, there wasn't countries that could control outcomes post-Civil War like they can now. So it'll be interesting what happens in that world.
audience.
If that were to happen, if America manages to fix itself, but I don't see how, if the American identity doesn't come back, if America doesn't reclaim what it means to be American, because right now nobody even knows what it means to be an American. They just point out 20 different things. Actually, what it meant to be American actually meant something. Just ask how everybody else in the world looks at us. How does a Japanese cartoon, anime, or people in Japan, for example, how do they draw what an American looks like? That's America. So if you're not willing to uphold that ideal, you can't have your country.
Because of the moral loading of the term Nazi, fascist, and other things like this. It's pure panic mongering. The idea is that you need to move towards this shielding ideology because the Nazis are coming, the stormtroopers are coming.
Oh, so you mean like since 2016, basically? I mean, they did it before as well, but the far left has been calling the right Nazis, and you think people are going for communism because it's the ideology that can protect you against that? That's
Communism, socialism. These are so it's a winner takes all. Like I said, it's a race to power for which ideology gets power. Is it going to be the Christian nationalists? Is it going to be the socialists? Is it going to be guys in New York like Mamdani? What is his name?
Mamdani.
Yeah. It's communist Mamdani.
Yeah.
Who gets it? Which ideology gets it? I mean, right now, the ideology which has been kind of traditionally getting it is the status quo ideology. Well, that's changing. That's been changing since Trump. Like, I don't know who our future presidents are going to be, but they're not going to have the same ideologies that they held for the last 40 or 50 years. That's not where we're heading. So which ideology gets it?
But that doesn't, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, except the one thing we started this with, which is the appeal of communism is to push back against the Nazis, right? But why wouldn't you just, I don't know, why wouldn't the ideology be like we're against Nazism or we're for liberal democracy?
But that's exactly how it's pushed. What do the Antifa, anti-fascist people in both our nations say? They say just that. This is about our republic.
But
this
they
is
are
about our
communists.
democracy.
But they
Yes,
are
they are.
Right.
But this is about our democracy. This is about our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly. This is about stopping Nazis and stopping fascists and stopping or allowing for due process. They literally market it that exact way you just said. So when you say, why don't they say that we're just anti-Nazi and pro-democracy?
That's so retarded. Bro, I just read this comment. He's talking about Americans. We went through ethnogenesis and are a unique people. We aren't generic Europeans. Jeez Louise, dude. Brother. Culturally, you might have your own unique Americanism. Brother. I can assure you, you are European. Very close. I can drop your ass off if your homies came in the Mayflower. I can drop you in the UK and you would look exactly like them. Dog. Come on.
Or pro-republicanism? That's exactly how they market it.
No, because I guess the reason I'm saying is like, I would say I am anti-Nazi and pro-democracy, right? And I am. I'm also not a communist. So why is communism the appealing version of those statements?
Well, this is a worldview issue. So do you think that you think a Nazi is the same thing a leftist thinks a Nazi is?
No.
Because a leftist thinks you're a Nazi.
Where do you guys come up with these takes? It blows my mind. It's not about looks. It's about spirit. Europeans are typically authoritarians. What? Who invented republics? Who invented democracy? Where do you think your ideas of states' rights or personal rights come from? Where do you think the concept of citizenship comes from? Roman law, which we use today, where do you think that comes from? Philosophy, from the Greeks. Law, from the Romans. And Christian morality, essentially. Those are the three things that pretty much make up America. Okay. Wow. The reach on some of these is like, it just comes straight out of the asshole. Then he says Romans who are not European. Holy fuck, bro. Holy fuck. You're getting ignored. Your levels of retarded that I can't fathom.
Well, I know what words mean,
Right.
but this is the problem is like, I know what words mean, right? So I know that Nazis exist. And by the way, there are some Nazis on the right, including in
Holy
the US,
shit.
and you can see them, right?
Talk about horrendous
But I also
takes.
know what a Nazi is, and therefore someone who has right-wing or centrist opinions like me is not a Nazi.
These are one of these dudes that say shit like the earth is flat, gravity isn't real, you're retarded, you don't believe that. Nukes are fake, there's no such thing. All right, bro. The Romans were Chinese. They was kings and shit. We was the greatest engineers ever.
Nazi.
But words do mean different things depending on worldview. They do, actually.
If you are a postmodernist, they do,
Not
right?
just a postmodernist. So if you look at definitions of words, you agree they have multitudes of definitions, right? Well, those are applying often to the distinctions in worldview. When I say spiritual as a Christian, I'm looking at that from a Christian view, right? If you say spiritual as a Buddhist, are we saying the same thing?
I actually think in a way you probably are, but the structure that underpins that is different. But you're trying to point at the same thing, which is whatever it is that is greater than human beings somewhere. And I'm pointing to the sky because that's kind of.
But the way we view epistemology, ontology, cosmology, everything is going to be completely different. So when we say that word, we may be pointing to a concept which is similar, but we're actually pointing at something which is different.
But what progressives do, and this is really worth discussing, I think, is what they do is if I say the word cabbage, there's 100 types of cabbage, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Sure.
Alfaturly donated 100 bits. Cheer 100 just in. Microsoft is offering voluntary retirement buyouts to roughly 8,750 U.S. employees as AI spending ramps up.
Yep, you see? Buyouts, huh? And if you don't take the buyout, you get fired. You really have no choice.
And what a progressive will do in a debate, as you referenced, is they'll pretend they don't know what a cabbage is.
Yeah, that's equivocation.
Right.
So the fallacy, debating with progressives, I've been doing it for years and years. The number one fallacy you run into with them, fallacious form of argumentation, is equivocation. They use the ambiguity of a word to switch between its meaning, depending on which one serves them best at the time.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to pin them down on semantics immediately, because if you don't, they'll spend an entire debate session or conversation using equivocation to move between meanings in an ambiguous way, so that they never really have to give an accounting for the things that they actually think, because those things are abhorrent. I do agree with that. I also understand, though, that meanings of words are going to change with worldview. From the progressive worldview, you are a Nazi. And I wish
because
more people,
I don't agree with them.
I wish more people would accept, well, it's not just because you don't agree with them. It's because from that frame, from that worldview, right, they're going to perceive you as being a white nationalist. You're a person who thinks that white people are above other people.
Why?
Because you're arguing against mass migration. And the only reason you would do that is because you want to see more white people.
But I'm an immigrant myself.
Doesn't matter.
Well, but no, it does matter, though, because that doesn't make any logical sense.
Doesn't have to. Worldviews don't have to make logical sense, but they are the prism in which we interpret the world. And so every debate that you have and every...
He got him on that point. That's what the left thinks.
At Jimmy Bigwood donated $9.99. The Greeks invented democracy, and then the Romans saw the problems and invented the first republic. The founders hated democracy because of its problems, so they gave us a republic Roman style.
Well, the Greeks already knew about that too, right? They said masculine republics give way to feminine democracies, which give way to tyranny. The Greeks already knew also. Like I said in other videos, we have a succession problem in every system that we've created. We don't know how to keep it going. Anyways, back to what he was saying. There is a difference in the kind of immigrants that come. In the eyes of the left, we're all the same. It's a human construct, like genetics is a human construct. Race is a human construct. We're all one people. Clearly, it's bullshit. And all cultures are the same. Bullshit. This is the Marxist mentality. The postmodernist, people and cultures, it's all just paint that humans create into the portrait. In other words, you're a blank canvas. That's bullshit. Yes, there are certain people that assimilate better. I would rather have a European and an East Asian immigrate to this country than any other class of people, simply because Japan is doing well, South Korea is doing well. They have first world civilizations, standards, education, specialty, and skills that our country could benefit from. Now, those are the only people that should be allowed to come here. Everybody else, you don't come from a place that has anything good to offer us culturally. I don't want to be enriched by your culture. There's nothing enriching about you banging goats. There's nothing enriching about you in a mud hut. Don't need it. You have nothing to offer us, our people, in this society. So you could stay home. Now, you can make the case every once in a while, somebody with extreme aptitude is born even in these conditions. They show promise. They're inventors, they're researchers, scientists, they're builders, they're creators of something. By all means, come on in. Come on in. You're showing capability, aptitude that most of your people don't have. You're gifted. If you have your gift, you may come, because we want gifted people among us. If you fuck goats, you could stay fucking goats. Don't need you here. It's that simple. Does it make you racist? It just makes you a pragmatist. That's it. I'm a pragmatist. Simple solutions for simple problems. It's only when you inject feelings like liberals do under the feminist worldview that all things matter on the surface. You know, what is it that they say? The aesthetic is more important. The feelings on the surface. If things appear good, then it's good. And we can't ever talk about what's stirring beneath the surface. That's bullshit. My worldview is the beneath the surface matters. I don't care if you got a clean coat of paint on this and I wipe it and there's shit behind. Because that's what our society feels like right now. America feels like it's got a clean coat of paint, but the moment you wipe your finger across, behind that paint of coat is absolute shit. That's what it feels like to live in America right now. That's what we want to fix. So the goat fuckers have to stay in their own countries. It's that simple. They call that racism because feelings, because women dominate liberal politics and liberal thinking. And so you can't say this out loud because it offends a group of people. What group of people did I just offend? Can you tell me exactly which group of people I just offended? I didn't name anybody. I just said a goat fucker. Now, you will tell me I've just been racist and offended somebody. Who were you thinking of? Where did your brain go to right away when I said goat fuckers? Because I didn't say anything. I didn't put that on anybody. So who's racist? Or rather, I should say, are you sure you're not racist?
Conversation you have. I wish more people would go in them understanding this concept. Worldview is what shapes your interpretation of all of reality around you. It shapes the meaning of words, how you interpret them, what people mean by the things they say, and what they don't mean by the things they say. The reason I think I got very popular on the right is because one of the things I've always done is sit down and make my opposition actually explain what they mean and why they mean it before I will ever even dive into a conversation with them. And the reason for that is because I want to know what their worldview is. What is it that you're interpreting different here than me? And that's where you start to actually have a debate about. So debates are about worldviews. Conversations are about worldviews, right? If we have completely different understandings of our interpretation, how do we even speak?
But there's also a level of deception we're talking about here, because if you take an ideology like Nazism, there's tenets to it.
Sure.
And if you then go, well, you're a Nazi, but then you don't obey or follow any of the tenets, then that is fundamentally illogical.
I've had multiple debates with people on whether or not Donald Trump's a fascist, okay? From their worldview. See, it's simple. All you have to do is you take the historic prism of what fascism is. They'll admit, clearly he doesn't meet that. But he meets certain tenets, which we can say have overlap with fascism enough that they reach like a fascist minimum. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, it just means that interpretively, from their kind of stance-dependent view, right, which means I made it up, this arbitrary metric, he meets it, therefore he is it. Now, unless you have some grounding, which is objective, how do you argue with that? Well, you really can't, because what most political debating is it's taking a fact, and then it's arguing about your feelings over that fact. That's 90% of what a political debate is. Here's a fact, and now let's argue our vibes. So unless there's some objective grounding that you have to tell them that they're wrong, right, it's actually very difficult to get the upper hand in a vibes debate, isn't it? So you really have to bring it back to not just facts, but foundation. They don't have any. This is why I hate them, because they're morally corrupt, ambiguous, no morality having scumbags. And that's what they want to do. They want to take a fact and argue their vibes about the fact. But when you get to their foundations, what is their foundation? They don't have any. Their entire foundation is there are no moral facts. So if that's the case, how can you do anything immoral if there's no moral facts? How? You can't. You can't ever do anything immoral if you don't believe there's no moral facts.
Well, but they believe that we are with all our different perspectives, because we have different perspectives on things, you and I, certainly. Well, they believe that we are immoral. So they must have some kind of morality. It's just
Stance-dependent morality.
Meaning, what's the difference between that and what your morality? Because you would say your morality comes from God or the Bible, or
Sure. There's two kinds of foundations for how it is that you can interpret morality. There may be more, but there's usually going to be two. It's is morality real or not? If it's not real, then you're an anti-realist, let's say. If it is real, then you're not. When I say real here, I'm saying this is a universal fact, that this is a moral fact. Now, the left and progressives and atheists and secularists, they don't generally believe in those moral facts. They think that morality is a social construction that we make up, and it's societally dependent. There is no overarching like moral facts. The religious say that there are, that God gave us moral facts, and these are the moral ways in which you have to live your life. And And so they're willing to enforce that.
Yeah, I prefer Roman piety. I think we as Europeans have built plenty of successful civilizations and empires before Christianity came. I think I view Christianity as like a weakening of the Roman Empire, or at least, at the very least, Christianity took root in the empire as it was becoming, or already had transformed into some like morally decayed, decrepit version of what Roman ideals were. The empire had started granting everybody, yeah, morality is DNA. I believe that too. I think morality like that, we in us have a natural instinct genetically to not hurt other people. Like seeing somebody hurting makes you feel bad. That's a genetic response. Like it's pre-wired in you. So I don't need my morality from the divine, but I like the Roman piety system, the Roman civic system where you do things for the state does things for you. You sacrifice for the state sacrifices for you. You put everything into the state, your body, you go to war for the state gives you land that you could live off of. Like you had a contract there. You had a contract to serve your country, serve your people, serve the land that you are tilling for the betterment of not just your family, but everybody else around us. We had duties. We had moral obligations to the state, to our people. I prefer that. I prefer to have a moral duty to my people, to the state, and the state have a duty to me. I think the Roman Empire was already on the way out. Christianity swept through the decay and the degeneracy and the opulence and the disconnect of what it meant to be a Roman. And it offered people a belonging, a place, an identity. And it took away civic duty of the Romans because you no longer fought for Caesar, fought for the state, for the glory of Caesar, the glory of the empire. You fought for the glory of God, or should we say the glory of the afterlife. You didn't build any more things, grand things that say the Romans managed to build that we could still see today, because the only thing that mattered, and I was reading a book that was talking about this, the only thing that matters now is the afterlife in the post-Christian worldview, right? You don't serve your country anymore. You serve God for the afterlife. Your gift is in the non-material world. So whatever you do here, as long as you don't do bad, doesn't really matter anymore. So why fight for country? Why fight for the state? Why fight for anything outside of God's purview in that sense? So no longer need to build things of grand scale because it's ungodly. It's opulence, it's wealth, it's greed. It's unbecoming of a godly man. And so Rome, in its civic sense and civic duty to military, to empire, to conquering, to the legion, shit like that, fell to the wayside. You no longer essentially were born into a system where you lived to serve, and serving granted you power if you served successfully, if you're a successful general and you managed to conquer land and shit like that, or build things. And then you were given titles and responsibility for being successful in those avenues. That was gone. You went now and served the church instead. And so it diverted Roman money and attention and power from the state to the church. So that, in a sense, weakened the empire also. I don't think Christianity would have ever taken root in the Roman Empire. Let's just say if it happened during like Augustus' time or the Pax Romana, when the empire was still strong and kind of holding together in a sense. It wasn't until real decadence and decay started happening, with tons of pressure in the frontiers from invasions and them losing Dacia and starting to lose the edges of the empire to the invaders and the savages and shit like that, barbarians. Only then did you get this religious sweep, because that's what happens when your society is crumbling and decaying. You need a new story of creation. You need a new identity to form. You need to reinvent yourself. You need an energetic society to flourish. And so that begins with a new story that grants you a place in this world, not a decaying one, a growing one, a better world. Well, what better world is there than the world of God in God's image? That was the messaging back then. We're no longer serving a decrepit state that's full of corruption and its currency has no more value in the eyes of the people. We're not serving a Caesar. some other empire toad. We're serving the glory of God now. So we've reinvented ourselves as a people. That's what was happening. The empire was reinventing itself under the Christian lens. So I think it's very interesting. When you read it like that, through I would say as much as an objectable lens as you possibly can, it's fascinating, I think. History in that sense is fascinating.
They're willing to enforce those moral facts. Because for them not to do that is immoral, right? Allowing my society to run around and do immoral things, obviously I want to curtail that. The other side thinks that that's totalitarian, though, right? That's the worldview divide. So the question is, how can you tell a person, how do you tell Destiny that it's immoral that he sucked 50 dicks? How do you do that? If it's the case that it's not a moral fact.
What?
How? Well, you can't. And that's where they live. That's
Well,
why
his sucking of dicks is irrelevant to me personally. He's perfectly entitled to suck as many dicks as he wants. I encourage him to do more.
Yeah, but why? Why is it that this idea of like OnlyFans hook?
Why are there shots being fired at Destiny?
And homosexual marriage and stuff like this. Why is that stuff we have to deal with again? Like why?
Why isn't it?
Well, see what I mean though? Like even that question, why isn't it? It's like that's not giving an accounting for a worldview. That's asking me to give an accounting for a worldview.
It is, yeah.
But the thing
But
is,
you're insisting that there is a worldview that's correct,
Sure.
right? And therefore it's up to you to articulate why it is correct.
Sure. But when you say why isn't it,
It's a genuine question. I'm trying to probe your worldview.
and
That's all.
I'm gonna walk you through it.
At Totha Chickens donated $2. How'd you get done dirty? No SPLC money?
They took away my white supremacist money, bruh. They took it all away. Fuck. The Imperial Grand Wizard won't visit me anymore. Shit.
If there are no moral facts, because I said so, that's why. And that's the failure of left-wing and progressive anti-realists. If there are no moral facts, and you ask me why it is that I should enforce my worldview, because I fucking want to. And there's no way for you to ever object against that. Any objection you have, which is stance dependent, which it will be, this is going to be the same objection that I give you, which is stance dependent. So which one of us is right?
Well, that's why we have elections, so that is adjudicated and then legislated on, right? Because ultimately there's philosophy and then there's politics, right? So you might philosophically believe that homosexuality is wrong, but at the level of society, we can have a vote, and it may turn out that the majority of the country doesn't agree with you.
But do you agree with me that your morality cannot come from the majority? Because if it does, all you're doing is doing the exact same thing. You're just saying, hey, now the majority says there are no moral facts, or only moral facts come from the majority.
Well, sure.
If that was the case, then we could have slavery, and that would be moral simply because the majority said it was.
And at one point it was, right?
And
those people believed in God way more than we do.
Well, yes.
They did, right?
This is true, but the thing is like, that's the idea of presentism. The whole world always believed in that. Just like the whole world usually didn't entertain things like race mixing, though they had no conceptualization of race. They thought of things in a tribal way, but they didn't do that either. Like, it was one of the things, the United States always gets shit because in the 20s, 30s, 40s, especially heading into World War II, post-World War I, well, there was a lot of segregation with black people. Well, that was global, though. That was global. Everyone was racist then. Like everybody.
Sure.
And so you're looking at this through the prism of presentism.
Super racist.
And the reason that that's kind of...
Come back to the destiny sucking dicks point, because it's important, obviously.
Damn.
Right? Why is it that you think he shouldn't suck dicks?
Because I said so. And if you're...
But that's fair enough.
Right.
But then the question is, are you seeking to convert your philosophical view into political reality?
Why shouldn't I?
I suppose that's a fair question, actually. Yeah.
Why shouldn't I?
Well, I guess it's a question of what happens when the majority of the public vote for somebody who doesn't
Now we're
agree
just
with your
outsourcing our morality again to the populace.
But see, there's laws that I don't agree with.
Right.
And there's laws that don't exist that I think should exist. But I accept that the majority of the country in which I live doesn't agree with me. And that is a kind of compromise we all have to make at some level, right?
Why do we have to make that compromise?
Because we want to live in a society of other people who have different views.
But
right?
Now we're moving into the right reduction. And so I guess maybe this is where I want to get to in the conversation. If there aren't any moral facts, and I just say because I said so, and you say, well, that's fair enough, right? Because that's all all of us are just doing because I said so, I guess.
All of us are entitled to a view.
Yeah, I don't want democracy because I said so. I want fascism because I said so. I want a new Hitler because I said so, right? Let's say that. If you can't point at that and say that that's wrong, right? There's some objective appeal to a standard for why that's really immoral and you shouldn't do it, then what happens is erosion. And the reason that erosion happens is because everything becomes permitted. So an example of this, I was told with gay marriage that it's no big deal. It's just like heterosexual.
Slippery slope, yeah.
Sexual people getting married. Well, okay, what's the argument against 3 men or 4 men getting married and then adopting a child? There really isn't one. You can't really be consistent and be against that. Like, where's the consistency issue? You can say, well, it's the outcomes. It's like, well, can you prove the outcomes will always be bad? No. Or can you prove that if there's two straight people who are heterosexuals who are from vastly different backgrounds, they could have really bad outcomes statistically too. It would prevent them from having a kid. It's like, what's stopping 10 men from getting married and adopting a kid? Nothing. Nothing's preventing that. And by the way, it's happening now. Now you see.
Told you. This is why I was telling you about my worldview. The nation needs a strong identity enforced by the state. Andrew's worldview is Christian-based. Mine is a little more authoritarian in that sense.
A damp 911 donated $5. I bought another unit today for $960. The old owner wanted to pay what I paid to get her stuff back. I said no and asked for $4K because of what I saw and estimated the value of what I saw. She started yelling, calling me racist and something else.
Oh, shit.
LOL.
Damn, bro. Well, guess you should have fucking paid for your unit, lady.
Men getting married in 3s and 4s. And you see polygamy coming back in a big way. You see birth rate collapses. Like, these are real issues in society. And
I mean, in fairness, I don't think birth rate collapses to do with 10 men getting married to each other, right?
No, it has to do, but it has to do with another issue, which is women. If you want to get women pregnant, you have a small window, and it's best to do it in their 20s. And what we do is we tell women to defer their best childbearing years to go to college during those years, which is insane. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't know why you would take the opposite sex who has the most limited window for childbirth for healthy babies and tell them to squander all of that. Especially because they end up at college running, the cock carousel often and things like this. And it's like, it's just not good for society. But kind of back to what I was saying, when we're getting to the idea of moral facts, this erosion always begins with the idea of, well, you can't really make a case. Like, I don't believe in your stupid objective morals. I don't believe in any of this. And so you can't really tell me that being a hooker is wrong. You can't really tell me doing this is wrong. You can't really tell me doing that is wrong. And so if you come to me and you say gays should be allowed to get married, and I just ask you back, why can't 3 of them get married? What's your answer to that? What is it?
I have people in my life who...
What's your answer to that?
Pretty damn good.
At Ryan the Eating Warrior donated $20. I'm convinced morality is tied to IQ.
I agree. That's controversial, but I agree. I think your moral compass is literally tied to your IQ. Just saying. Well, not genetic. We could just say morality is also genetic. But the higher IQ you tend to be, generally, your moral compass is like aligned in general. Always, and we have to say this too. It's so funny that you have to say, but there are the rare occasions of your like uber smart serial killers. Yeah, dude, the exception doesn't prove anything, it doesn't make the rule. Excuse me, actually, most serial killers have extremely high IQ, actually. Yeah, bro, but are most people serial killers? Like, slow it down with that low IQ take right there. You can't infer what we're discussing. Sit the fuck down, actually.
What is it?
I don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. So what's preventing it? Nothing. And so then it just you see society become more and more and more absurd over time.
Why is it important? What happens when 3 gays get married?
Well, individually, perhaps nothing, right? Like on an isolated, like what happens when one Muslim gets imported to the UK?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it depends what he does, but yeah.
Exactly. But now what happens when 50,000 of them get imported to the UK? Well, now something. And it's the same thing when it comes to the importance of moral character inside of a nation is the exact same way. Well, what happens? It doesn't matter.
To clarify for me, Andrew. So when you have, we have, I think, 4 million Muslims in the UK. Overwhelming majority are perfectly good people. But when you have a large Muslim population, what we've discovered is you have a smaller percentage of extremists and Islamists, right?
Right. And when you allow moral standards to fall to the wayside, massive consumerism, individualism, materialism, and everything else is a modern in the world. Selfism, you could say that too, because everybody is very selfish, me today. We have no duties and no standards towards one another. Women don't have a duty to have children. Men don't have a duty to uphold civilization anymore. You're expected to consume. That's what you are. You're an economic unit in the system that we're living in, essentially. So the state has no duty to you. It's not protecting you and your vote. Your vote doesn't matter. The state rejects everything that the population wants. Actually, the constituency is pretty much invisible and only partaking in a popularity contest. So the corporations, the real power, are the ones that get to drive this country in their image, you could say. These multinational corporate, these conglomerates, these identities, or things that they can also call people now because they labeled corporations people. They granted themselves a level of a status, a personhood. So you have this society that's backsliding on morality where anything goes. And you can make the argument that there's an inflection point where you go far enough that people no longer have a sense of duty. Overall, a duty to have children, a duty to serve their country, a duty to maintain the institutions and keep them credible, functioning, non-corrupt, a duty to be not corrupt themselves in the system and play by the rules, a duty to your fellow man in your neighborhood, right? Simple. These civic duties, these expectations no longer exist in this society that we've ushered in as we've backslid on the morality, the expectations, and the duties. So women feel like they don't need to have kids. Men can fuck around and do whatever they want. And you end up with the population collapse, and you end up with institutions that are corrupt, rotted to the ground. You end up with companies that don't care about its people. You end up with a government that becomes increasingly tyrannical, seeking more and more power and control over a population it cares less and less about. This is the backsliding he's talking about.
At Totha Chickens donated $2. Time to make a voluntary eugenics program app.
Thanks, brother. And I don't think Constantine understands that argument because he's saying, okay, well, what's wrong with gay people getting married? Well, yeah, on the micro scale of one, nothing, most likely. I think that's the argument Andrew's making, nothing. But now if society is immoral as a whole, then you lose certain duties that kept the society vibrant and growing. And now it's in a state of decay. That's what happens when this is wholesale everywhere. Again, something the state should be enforcing.
What happens when gays get married? What is the Islamist version of homosexuality?
Yeah, so what happens is, if you're going to say 3 men can get married, then you need to be able to say 1 man can marry 3 women.
Why?
Because tell me what argument could you possibly have against it if you allow one and not the other? What?
I suppose if you start unpicking laws like that, you probably unpick most laws, right?
Yeah.
On that basis.
It would erode the moral character of the very thing you're trying to preserve, which is your culture.
Exactly.
But your whole culture is founded on Christian ethics. And so if you say, when you ask individually, what's wrong with 3 guys getting married? Maybe I could say, maybe the effect is so minimalistic, who cares, right? But that's not the point. The point is that if you let 3 men get married, then you have to let 1 man marry 3 women. Why wouldn't you? What would be the consistent argument between the two?
That's a pain in the ass, man.
Yeah.
Having 3 wives.
Maybe, but the thing is like, how would,
just kidding.
how would polygamy...
So what's your answer to all those questions? Your answer is God said this is right, this is wrong, therefore that's how we know what's right and wrong, basically.
Well, I would say something more important, which is that Christian ethics, even if you don't believe it, let's say, I'm not a Christian, I don't believe in any of that nonsense. What you should believe, though, is in outcomes. And the outcomes of Christian ethics, even on secular society, are the best outcomes. So if that's the case I would make for why I think Christians should be in charge of basically everything, is that the outcomes are still going to be best for even people who aren't Christians. Now, maybe they don't like that, but so what? I don't like their view either. And I think Christians should be in charge, and they have no objection because they have no moral facts. So who cares? It comes down to, like you said, at the very beginning of the conversation, we'll circle it all the way back. Comes down
Got a point
to
there.
who has the force. Well, it's going to be the ideology in charge who has the force. So is it going to be mine, or is it going to be yours? Is it going to be the commies? Who's it going to be? And that's what I think the state of actual world affairs and politics is now. It's like a race to the top. Who gets there first? I don't know if it's depressing. Like it's almost like may the best man win, right? May the best ideology win. I don't know if it's depressing. It's
Do you not think all government...
So my issue with the let the best man win, that would be fine if we operated in an equal market. We don't. It's rigged. So if Democrats get in power, for example, the leftists will then institute censorship, shut down conversation, close down anything that could threaten their worldview. So it's not let the best win because open ideas weren't allowed out in the open for people to make their own decisions. Because the leftists won't be running on all those policies. The leftists don't say out loud open borders. The leftists don't say out loud like gerrymandering, whatever you want to say. The leftists out loud don't say like give mass amnesty to 20 million illegals. They don't say these things out loud. They purport ideas that makes them seem center, makes them seem reasonable, pragmatic even to some of those that are politically homeless. Yet when they get power, Then they push the more radical leftist wing of the ideology and then completely overwhelm and saturate the airwaves and the conversation in a certain direction. So even if your idea was better, it can't be challenged. Like you can't challenge a liberal's idea because you're now a Nazi. This is them trying to take control of the conversation, which he was saying earlier. If we had a free market of ideas where we could discuss and the best idea won, sure thing, that's great. But the market actors, the ones that have the most to lose, never act freely. And they're always subverting the others. It's just the human condition. So I think you have to wield power to usher in the world that you want. Historically speaking, there has never been a revolution, a change in governance, a change in a system without blood. That's a whole nother conversation we can't have for obvious reasons. So, for the moment, just vote harder. For the moment.
And it's fundamentally, even in dictatorships, is about power sharing. What you're talking about is dominance by one group over everybody else, because we've got a better view, right? Yeah. That's what's depressing to me.
Why is that depressing?
Because, like I say, in most societies, there's a recognition. It might be tribal societies. There's the Pashtuns and the blah, blah, blahs, right? The countries that do well are the countries where those different interests are regulated through some kind of peacemaking mechanism at the level of politics. That's what politics is for, really, right? Whereas the country,
it doesn't need to be exclusionary, though. Just because one particular ideology holds the brackets of most of the power doesn't mean that it has to be exclusive or that it can't in some way accommodate other sections of society.
That's also not true. The most stable societies are the most homogenous. It's not the Pashtuns and the XYZs, whoever the fuck you're trying to name, using politics as a form of diplomacy against war with each tribe. That's bullshit. It all led to war. Diplomacy always failed. Politics failed. War happened. One tribe got conquered. One city, state, or nation got conquered and assimilated and forced into the dominant culture. Then that became the law of the land. They're doing it with Iran. Iran has like 12 different or more ethnicities within it, groups of people, and they're wanting to balkanize Iran to permanently weaken it. They want to make Iran into 12 or so different states, you know, the Balochistans and the Kurds and, you know, all the other ethnic enclaves within Iran, the ethnicities that make up Iran's 92 million people. They want to balkanize it. They want to partition the country based on those ethnic lines. And they've actively tried to fund certain ethnicities like the Kurds by flooding them with weapons and hoping that they have an incursion into Iran for their independence. It's never worked. It's always been multiculturalism has always been a weakness of a country. Multi-ethnic societies have always been weak for that reason. Because you have too many competing powers based on ethnic lines. And there's always a tension, and you have to use politics in order to quell it. But politics eventually fails when the ideas diverge enough, when opportunity presents itself for sovereignty. Like a bad actor that would like to flood your ethnic tribe with weapons to grant you your freedom. Go fight for it. Here's the weapons. Here's the guns you need to fight for sovereignty. You don't have to live under their rule. And they go, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Now, if you have a country like Japan that's like 95% ethnically Japanese, do you think they're at risk of fracturing from, say, North Japanese to South Japanese or whatever, the people in Tokyo from some other part of Japan on some island? Absolutely not. They're all the same. In their eyes, they're all one people. And as long as they remain ethnically homogenous like that, they will never break apart. America's at risk for breaking apart. Iran's at risk for breaking apart. All the European states, prior to becoming the states that they've become, were already broken apart and then have assimilated themselves through war into states. The German tribes all had their own little territories and states, and they were all assimilated and unified by the Prussian Empire or the Prussian state. Same shit. The Italian Empire or the Republic of Rome didn't get strength until it united all the different city-states at the time in what today is Italy through war, not politics. Mostly war. They sent men. Your offer was join or die. That's simple. And that's what it always leads to.
Well, how are you going to accommodate the population of San Francisco when you're in charge?
Well, I mean, tell me, how would San Francisco like die off if you stop letting gays get married there? It's not going to.
I mean, that's all they do, from what I could tell when we're in San
They don't
Francisco.
get married there. They just do a lot of gay shit there, right? But they're not. They're not.
I didn't observe that directly.
Yeah,
but
but marriage. But marriage is not the big thing in San Francisco. But
You
look,
see what I'm saying,
Yeah, but
right?
I can point to in
Because you would outlaw homosexuality, I'm guessing.
Sure. Well, I would outlaw homosexual marriage.
But not but isn't homosexuality wrong also?
Sure, it's immoral.
So
but
why wouldn't you outlaw?
You don't need to necessarily always place a law in against something which is immoral. It's not always conducive to the society to do that.
That's fair.
So, for instance,
At Ryan the Eating Warrior donated
Hey,
$20.
thanks, brother.
If polygamy was promoted and encouraged, the country would fall. Violence like we've never seen before in modern times from lonely younger generation guys. It would absolute chaos.
I like to believe that too, but when you look at the average man today, they're so cucked out of their own minds. Their testosterones are... We have men that are 20 years old with testosterone of a 90-year-old man 100 years ago. Like, what fighting spirit? What can you do against drone warfare? And the state being the size that it is. We've never had states that are governed the size of 350 million people. That's so unfathomable. Like, you're not going to go up in arms with your brothers and take over Washington. It just sounds insane, bro. You're taking a fucking kamikaze drone to the face. Like, you will be eliminated immediately if you posed a real threat to the governance of the United States and the rest of its people who would probably not side with you because you're the incel rebellion. You will be put down and crushed with machine warfare. That's over. That's literally over. The only way you're changing the government today is you have to reach across the aisle to the very liberal or leftist that you hate with an idea that it puts you both in a compromised position in the middle that is accepted. You have to be a bridge builder. Bridge builders get killed. It's not the radical leftist screaming into the wind his radical bullshit or the radical right. Whoever that is and what they're screaming, they don't matter. The most dangerous person to a current power structure is the bridge builder that takes those two opposite positions, merges them, and creates a new system. They get killed immediately. Look throughout history. All bridge builders get murdered very fast because they gain power and approval and acceptance and a mandate from the masses at the bottom to bring up change that threatens those at the top. That's it. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, you could say, was one of those people. He was a bridge builder. He did unite some independents and a lot of people on the right. And his ideas were becoming dangerous to certain power structures at the top. But you are not going to get that otherwise. There's not going to be a right-only rebellion. There's not going to be an incel rebellion unless these incels actually comprise a huge swath of both right and left. And they're ideologically aligned against the power structures in place. And you would have to convince a huge swath of so-called, I give up and I'm going my own way, fuck this system, I don't care about it and I'm not partaking. Like, those are not the kind of men that go and fight in wars and shit like that. We're just being honest. Like, they don't even have kids. They don't have wives. What do they have to fight for? Nothing. They already are bitchless. So it's like, oh, if a dude is going to have 10 girls because we have polygamy right now, polygamy, all that shit, who cares? The guy's bitchless. He's 35. He's been bitchless his whole life. Like, it doesn't matter whether one guy has 10 bitches or no bitches because he's never had hoes. He's never had money. There's nothing he's lost. He doesn't know the pain of loss. His children haven't died in his arms. His wife wasn't killed in a raid in his village by a rival gang or tribe or whoever. He has no law. There's no fire in him to bring a system down. He's experienced nothing but what? Porn, weed, video games. He's tranquil. He's pacified. They know what they're doing. The modern man is pacified on purpose with these things. He's never going to rise up, bro. Give up on that idea. You want people to rise up, you're going to have to build bridges with the people you don't like.
Yago King donated $2. Polygamy was already being promoted through the likes of Myron, Andrew, and all of the other red pill grifters. At Totha Chickens donated $2. Wrong. To change governor, get everyone to run on banks.
All right, bro. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me, dude.
I would say for homosexuality, you're not going to jail, right? None of this type of thing. But there doesn't need to be any glorification, right? You're not going to get married. Nobody's going to bust in your bedroom and tell you what's what, right? But there's not going to be any rainbow flags in the White House either. There's not going to be any pro-gay government.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't push the shit.
At Ryan the Eating Warrior donated $10. I'm talking on a social level, not government level. Likely lone wolf attacks from the loner taking out the alpha. This happens in nature. Doesn't need to be a head-on attack either.
I get what you're saying, but in order to institute social change, you need the backing. You need governmental backing. Like, you understand? If a guy like Luigi, the healthcare CEO, did the healthcare system change at all? Would the healthcare system change at all because he took out an alpha? And if more Luigis happened and a couple more CEOs died, you think the healthcare companies would change? No, because the system itself must change. All that would happen is the alpha gets replaced with the next moron at the top, the next health CEO, So the same shit in your system. If on a social level that happens, lone wolf attacks, not condoning this shit. If that happens, the next moron will fill the seat. The system itself doesn't change. Everything goes back to normal. You see, it has to be a governmental change because government enforces the societal change that you're looking for because our country is just too fucking big, dude. How are you going to enforce anything on a social level, a change? How are you going to affect the society of 350 million plus people from all walks of life with different beliefs? Force. This is the entire argument Andrew has, force doctrine. I can only make you do things. We only obey laws because of force, because of the threat of force, of violence. That's the system.
Propaganda anywhere.
Does that not go against the First Amendment?
Well, I think that would be the most important aspect of the First Amendment, to say that the government's not going to propagandize towards one ideology or the other. Isn't that the whole point of secularism? The second they put the rainbow flags up on the White House.
What about Christian? Yeah.
What about it?
Should that be in public communication?
Mm-hmm. Well, so in this particular case, I do think it should be. Yes.
But you just said the First
Absolutely.
Amendment is about no propaganda.
Right. Well,
And it'd be great if men could rise up like you're saying, Ryan, but think of this too. What's going to happen 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now? Let's just say robot girlfriends come out. Like automatons, literally that Tesla robot with human-like skin and AI chat functionality. Like it sounds like a real person. Latency is 0. It responds. It's practically everything but a real woman. What man is going to go off and have an incel revolution when your needs are taken care of? Think about that for a second. So a guy having 10 real women or the dude fucking his robot girlfriend, what's the difference? To the guy that never had hoes, he now gets a robot girlfriend with a Gluck Gluck 9000. And he's great, dude. Fine. It's better than nothing. One more thing, one more trinket that's going to keep him locked away in his prison of a home. One more pacified goy. Yeah.
his argument to me is, wouldn't it be against the First Amendment to outlaw rainbow flags? Right? And I say, no, that wouldn't be against the First Amendment. That would be more in line with.
So
the
wouldn't
First
it be
Amendment.
wouldn't it be compliant with the First Amendment to outline crucifixion?
You wouldn't necessarily need to even promote.
And your robot girlfriend is going to spy on you. So when all the incels prepare themselves for their revolution, those robots will turn on, their eyes go red, and then they'll strangle you in your sleep. So like revolution averted. You don't think that's going to be a new form of control? Another modicum of control from the government? You don't think they're going to be listening, watching, recording the Glock 9000 and everything it's doing? You really? Come on, big dog. You don't have any idea the system we're about to go down, and people are accepting
Yeah,
it.
Cooking donated $2. Nerd Rage. You underestimate the power of a computer science major with admin privileges.
Crosses or crucifixes.
Thank
But
you.
what you could do is you could promote things like value structures. So let me give you an example of this. You're driving down the street, you look over to the right, and there's billboards. You've seen this a million times, right? What if the billboards had things like family, right? Mom, and it showed a mommy and a daddy and the kids, right?
Controversial.
And yeah, exactly. And the push was towards the ideas of normalcy. The push was towards the idea of this is what we want to see in society. What if tax breaks went to married people, right? What if we drastically increase this to the point like some Eastern European countries have done, which is help their birth rates, where it's like, okay, you have 3 kids, you don't have to pay taxes anymore.
I agree.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah. You don't have to.
But you don't have to be Christian to pursue that. You could be a secularist politician and promote all those things.
Sure, but under a secular view, why do we need to have a domestic increased population anyway? They can just import who they want. And that's what they did in your country.
I mean,
that's what they do in my country.
I can give you lots of secular arguments for why having a bigger population is better and having more
Yeah, but why
children
not
is better.
import it?
Why not import it? Because you get issues with integration, cultural compatibility.
Unless you import so many of them that the original culture's replaced.
Well, you don't know who you're importing. And also, the argument for tradition, it's actually one of the interesting differences. I mean, we had Dr. David Starkey explain this to. I don't remember if it was on our show or not. The difference between American conservatism and British conservatism is British conservatism is about tradition and history, whereas American conservatism is about religion and values. So you could argue for the preservation of a society or the multiplication of an existing culture through time from a non-religious point of view, which is like, what we have is good by definition, a priori, because that's what it is. It's our country, it's our society. We want to make more of that.
So it's good because it's good?
It's good because we are already here, right? It's good because where we are is a product of where we've come from, and where we are, we like ourselves, right?
But then you can't argue against mass migration because it's just, what you're saying is just a tautology. This is good because it's good, and that's good.
This is good because we've been given, okay, if my dad gives me a watch, right? It's not necessarily the watch and its unique qualities that make it special. It's the fact that I got it from my dad. So the culture that we got from our ancestors is worth valuing because we got it from our ancestors, because it's where we've come to as a civilization.
So why doesn't he say our culture is simply better than theirs and we need to preserve it? Not all people and cultures are the same. He can't make that argument because it's inflammatory. So we still have to say, well, everybody's kind of the same, but we just have to preserve our culture. Why? Why do you have to preserve your culture? Just historical reasons. Isn't it because it's better?
That's, again, it's tautology.
Why?
Because what you're saying is, because I got this from my ancestors, it's good. What makes that good? Because I got that from my ancestors.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
saying. And that's
saying.
tautology. So that what you're doing is you're pointing to the identification of the thing as being the thing, right? Which makes the thing the thing.
I get what you're saying, but I think you're missing my point.
So then I say, well, mass migration is good. Why is it good? Well, because it's good.
No, but I think what I'm saying is, if you take the watch example that I gave you, my dad gave me a watch, right? Yeah. There is a sentimental value to that. Why is that? Well, it's connected to the passing down from generation to generation. Why is that important? Well, it's kind of, I mean, you might not agree with this, but from an evolutionary perspective, the point of life is to recreate itself. And you'd probably say that's tautology if the point of something is to
I mean, again, so now we're getting a worldview, right? I totally agree with you. The primary edict from an evolutionary standpoint is reproduction.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
So that's why mass immigration is not good. Because you're not reproducing your culture, you're bringing in
But they're getting
culture.
Why
replaced.
can't you reproduce your culture with mass migration?
Because it doesn't work in practice, clearly. Because people don't integrate.
Let me give you the counter.
Okay.
Are the people that you're importing generally more or less traditional than you?
Traditional to their tradition, yes.
Okay. Do they usually, do their women get pregnant younger than your women?
Yes.
Well, then that seems like it's really good for reproduction.
Of their culture, not of ours.
Well, it's culture.
If they don't integrate into our culture, they're not reproducing our culture.
But you want to reproduce your genetics, right?
From an evolutionary perspective.
Why can't you do it with them?
Because culture matters.
Okay, right.
And our culture is better.
But you said the primary edict's reproduction, not reproduction of culture.
No, but it's like saying you said the primary edict is reproduction, so why didn't you adopt kids? Well, no, I want to have my own kids. That's what I'm saying.
But that would be reproduction. You reproducing your genes.
Yes.
You adopting kids, not you reproducing
Is not
your
reproducing,
genes.
just like mass immigration.
But culture itself, the idea of it's an externalized like philosophical concept, or it's a concept of the mind.
Yes.
Right? You would agree with that?
Sure.
You're not reproducing that, you're reproducing your genes. That would be the evolutionary view. And
Sure.
so what the evolutionist progressives would say is like, this is the best way for you to reproduce your genes, because you can bring in a bunch of women who you can breed with younger, so they're going to have more of your children.
But that isn't what's happening. You're importing people who bring their own culture with their own family structure, and they're reproducing that culture.
I'm not arguing this. Right? I'm 100,000% with you.
Yeah.
If I were in charge, if I was king of the UK tomorrow, monarch tomorrow, I would close the gates of immigration immediately and give Tommy Robinson a badge and be like, good job, man. You did the best you could with what you had. But the thing is like, I guess what I'm getting at, before we get into too many reductios, I'm just trying to point this out.
Yeah.
That what you're arguing, you see how what we just did is we took a fact and we're like vibing over it, but now I've introduced some philosophy to it. And so now I'm asking about the grounding. What is the grounding? What is the thing under the pillar?
I think actually we were both talking about the philosophy.
Yes.
Your argument is from a secular perspective, or from a perspective that's not aligned with yours, you can't argue against mass immigration. I thought I gave you some pretty compelling arguments from a secular perspective against mass immigration.
You can argue it. Okay, what I'm saying to you is that if if everything that you're arguing is just coming from a me perspective, all morality is just dependent on stance, then even if these people are doing something you consider dumb, it's not immoral. How could it be immoral, or how could it be wrong for them to do that? How? And this is a question when you reduce to the ethical purview. I realized a long time ago, Christians can basically do whatever the fuck we want to secular atheists and progressives, because
What happens to treating others as you would like to be treated?
well, so you're going to bank on the benevolence of my view,
No, that's the follow.
but that,
but I should, because you're a Christian.
right? So if you're going to bank on the benevolence of my view, are you ceding that my view is the right one?
Better,
Because
superior.
if it's not,
No, but I'm saying benevolence is an inherent part of being a Christian.
so but if you have a foundation of just stance dependence for all of your moral claims, right? Then even if I violated,
Yeah, that appeal is always the same to Christians. Why do they constantly attack that same argument? The morality of Christians. Because their worldview, it's like, aren't you a Christian? You shouldn't be judging. Aren't you a Christian? You should forgive. Aren't you a Christian? You should, and then they hold you to a higher moral standard, like, you're supposed to be a Christian. You should forgive. Rapists, murderers, all that shit. You're a Christian. You should welcome everybody. So have no borders and nothing in the country. They always invoke those Christian ethics when it serves their argument. But when it's time to enforce something like law, order, consequences, punishments, not very Christian of you, is it?
this and was a complete hypocrite and actually just verbally just paid it lip service for the purpose of controlling your mind, you can't tell me why that's wrong. You can't really point to it and be like, that's immoral, because there are no moral facts.
Yeah. But, okay, but that being the case, but what we're talking about is, you're saying that you want your ideology to dominate.
Yes.
Effectively.
Yes.
Is that a Christian way of doing things?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, if we want to look back through human history, we can start with the Byzantine Empire if you want to.
No, but
massive Orthodox Empire. We can talk about the naming of kings by God himself. We can dive right into the lineage of the King of Kings if you want to. The thing is that I'm not here advocating for a monarch. What I'm saying is that society is better off dominated by Christians than dominated by non-Christians. And if you can point to me a society where that's not true, I'm all ears.
Yeah. And what do you mean by...
I would say Japan. Japan. This is what... I always fought with this idea that Andrew's talking about as well. I'm like, okay, what effect did Christianity have on the formation of European societies, and why European societies have done so much better than non-Christian societies, the Christian-dominated ones? And the argument for the morality is like, well, you will never have a moral society without Christianity as the scaffold. Right? God's edicts on how you should treat your fellow man and behave in society. But then you look at Japan, then you look at China. I mean, Japan is the model perfect example to use anyway. But just look at Japan. They have morality. They have their degenerate shit, but so do Christian countries anyways. Like, we have OnlyFans everywhere. Porn is a problem here, drug abuse, all that shit. But before the degenerate fall, and all the things that were instituted that are un-Christian, like, let's just say, in a stronger Christian-based country, if you compared it with Japan, look at Japan. They have law, order, morals, values, duties. They're not out in the streets, savages and killing one another. If anything, Japanese people are considered far more, what could you say? Well-tuned and tailored for modern society, because they follow rules. They're always on time. They operate almost in a robotic manner. They're very agreeable, orderly people. They have very low murder rates and assault and, violent crime in general. I don't know what the drug epidemic or addiction is like in Japan, but I assume they don't really have a problem with drugs like we do here in the West. It is a very high trust society. I would say the Japanese are higher trust than even some of the best European countries, at least on par. So we have a nation in East Asia, in Japan, that operates on the level both of trust and morality, like some of the best European Christian countries. And so you don't need Christianity, would be the logical conclusion there, because here is Japan. That's something I've always argued with in my mind too, because, hey, we have an example of a non-Christian society that's functioning as a first world country in a lot of ways better than ours is currently. So that would be my argument back to the fundamentalists, to the religious fundamentalists, because they use, of course, religion as their moral scaffold, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's plenty of good in that, but is it the only system that is viable? It's not. Japan shows that it's not.
Dominated. Because a lot of people hear that word and go, whoa, that sounds authoritarian.
The social, political climate, well, there is some authoritarianism to it, I suppose, but I just think there's authoritarianism to each ideology which exists, including liberal ideology. It's just authoritarianism now by direct democracy. So it's like, I suppose Christians might come in and say some things that are pretty controversial. They might be like, no, gays can't get married. Prostitution's illegal. No more pornography, right? Blasphemy. Let's be a little more chill on that, right? Maybe they'll put in some things like that. Tell me how society's worse. Like, how's society worse because 18-year-olds can't show their asshole on OnlyFans? Like, I honestly want to hear, how's it worse? Like, it seems to me like by every metric, it's way better. Right?
Someone said, unfortunately, Japan has a dying population, so both it and the Christian West are not doing great. Yeah, but the one thing they share is corporations. My working theory of the modern world is that corporations are the cancer. Corporations are these entities that helped Europe explode in power because it allowed resources to be managed very efficiently. So the earliest corporations, like the East India Trading Company and shit like that, like they turned into nations practically in power. They had their own navies, armies, mass wealth and power and influence acquired. The framework of what a corporation was the moment it hit Europe exploded European advancement. Like, look at when the first corporation basically founded, and then look at the trajectory of Europe and its power in the rest of the world, because it was the most efficient framework we had to delegate resources for profit gain and power. Okay, we're now in this like post-corporatist environment, in this multinational conglomerate global economy where the corporations have coalesced into this kind of corrupt, what could you say? This corrupt influence on society. Kind of like how we had the separation of the church and state in order to rid ourselves of the corporate or the corrupt church, because, churches got corrupt at one point and the popes were like basically wielding their influence and their power to wage war and all this other shit. It was very ungodly what was going on. Very corrupt morally as well, and corrupt in general. And so the church became corrupt. And so it needed to be separated from the state. I think in the future, fuck fascism, communism, capitalism, any of these isms for our economic governance, our systems, until we address corporations. And I think Korea is a perfect example. Is Korea has the worst birth rates because they have the biggest corporate dystopia. They have like 3 conglomerates in Korea that basically employs everybody. They have the strongest corporate hold. If corporations are a leech that kills a society because it starts to compete with the citizens, because it competes for power and influence, then Korea is our first example of what a corporate takeover of a country looks like, and the population collapse that is instituted from it, and the degradation of society, and turning the people into cattle and economic units of production. And so those corporations control everything, including the government, because that's how much power they've amassed. South Korea is ground zero for this working theory. The rest of the world, where corporate structure is embedded in governance, embedded in society, has a ton of influence, you notice the same population decline, the same population drop. When a country begins getting wealthy, when a country utilizes the corporate system, it starts to lower in population. Why? Because the corporations gain power now and they compete against the constituency that votes in anti-corporate rules. The corporations with their power vote for and pay for campaigns and politicians that institute corporate positive legislation at the detriment of the people. At the detriment of the people means you can't afford a family, you can't afford to buy a house, men and women hate each other, you're depressed, so you consume and you buy products, and then you're la 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 la. Yeah, the Dutch East India Company is a perfect example of this. And then that system exploded all across Europe, and that's how, boom, Imperial Europe was formed. It just exploded because a lot of that money, a lot of those boats, a lot of those soldiers going to find foreign lands and shit like that were funded by corporations, not just the crowns. Of course, the crowns funded a bunch of expeditions too, but a lot of the money, the resources, the weapons, and the backing came through corporate structures. I think, and we may look back one day and I'll be completely vindicated on this, is that the corporate system we have today must be eliminated if we want a new golden age. We need to, I don't know what we need to create. Maybe it's like a co-opt. Every company turns into some form of a co-opt. But I could tell you right now, the shareholder first corporate model destroys a country for short-term profit. You can clip that. And I believe that fully. So I think all these countries, whether it's Japan or us or Europe or anybody else that attains a corporate structure, is headed for the inevitable collapse in on itself as the corporations literally act like vultures and pick apart the carcass from the inside out for maximum profit. They serve themselves, nothing else. All a corporate system is designed to serve as the shareholder. There's no duty to the nation, to the people, to the future generations. The only duty is to shareholders, which is money. That's it. Profit. Above all else, they'll sell out a country to make money. They'll sell out the people to make money. That's my working theory. If anybody has a similar working theory, has read a book about something like that, send it to me because I'm very interested. This is something I've been kind of dwelling on for the past, year or so. It's corporations that are the cancer that destroy society. It's not necessary capitalism. Corporations have co-opted capitalism. It's not necessary that it's socialism. The corporations have co-opted socialism. Whatever system we're going to create out of all of this in World War III, whatever's coming, if the corporations still exist, it will be co-opted and corrupted, and it will destroy that civilization again. Bruh. Damn.
At Count Chad the Impaler donated $5. Unpopular opinion. Replace corporations with partnerships and sole proprietorships. No more corporate veil.
Yeah, something like a co-op, like REI. I think REI, I don't know if there's still a co-op, but I think co-ops are probably the way you want to go. Like the corporation should serve its workers only. But we have to do it in a way where they can actually still raise funds and money and seed money and angel investing. And, like that system is still superior compared to, I don't know what we could come up with. Let me just say that. I have no idea. But the way to allocate resources so that people profit, the corporate system, we don't have anything better. I don't know. I think the co-op model works for the workers because REI was a perfect example. In a co-op, the workers share in the profit of the company. So they had less turnover. They had more profit, higher quality products. The workers were happy, all that shit. So the corporation was doing better and better. The co-op model. I don't know how you apply that, though, countrywide without obviously bloodshed. Let's be honest. So what kind of hybrid model of a corporate system that we just described, corporate co-op style, something, a part of each that's the best and, sweeping away the worst of each? I don't know. Because the capitalists will make the argument of, well, if I'm not going to get the lion's share of the profit for the risk I'm taking, I built the factory, I invested the money, I worked my ass off to be able to hire my first person, I took all the risk. Like, you have to be able to answer that question too. How do founders get rewarded for bringing ideas to life, for risking themselves, risking their livelihoods? Like, it has to be fair to both those that started and invented and brought along the 50,000 people that now work for them, but also the 50,000 people that work for them. Don't know. So smarter people than me have to figure that one out.
At Davitaylor 9,257 donated $5. Hey Bo, you speak about men coming together and having their own space. What's your thoughts on Freemasonry? Strong charitable or is it a cult?
I don't know. I didn't look deep into Freemasonry. I know a lot of the conspiracy theorists about what the Freemasons are and their effect on societies and secret societies in general, but I haven't looked deep enough to give you a real thought. To me, it's, I don't know, another shadowy organization that has its effect in some of the founding of the country, and I don't know too much more about that.
At Ryan the Eating Warrior donated $20. It's a mix of WEF propaganda for anti-family messaging along with the government slowly raising prices so people aren't in a procreation-friendly environment in addition to corporations taking advantage.
I think corporations are everything. I think corporations have more influence and power than you could ever believe. I think we made a mistake letting them get as big, as powerful, and as influential as we did. And we're all paying the price for it. We live in a two-tier system. It's us, the people, and then it's the corporations. In terms of, imagine what legislating laws looks like. If you take the last 50 years of America and you look at legislation that benefits the people, and then you look at legislation that benefits corporations, vast majority of legislation benefits corporations. And so your quality of life has been going down precipitously. And that's what you're noticing right now. It's becoming unbearable to live in a corporate dominated environment. That's what you're witnessing right now.
At Mr. Hills 3,283 donated CA $5. Bo, where's that honey you used to podcast with? Hook me up.
Stop simping, bro. It's not good for your health.
At Totha Chickens donated $2. Best we can do is feudalism, champ.
Techno-feudalism, playboy, to be specific. Your goy bot will deliver your goy slop in your goy box. And you will be happy and own nothing. Unfortunate.
And the people arguing against it are like, well, we don't want totalitarianism. That's totalitarianism? I'll tell you what I saw as totalitarianism was COVID checkpoints, potential vaccine mandates, communications going through Facebook and the government to identify people who wouldn't wear the mask. That seems like a lot more of this totalitarianism, fascism thing than like, oh, sorry, you're 18, you can't put your asshole all over the internet. But sorry. It's like, what? Where at some point maybe we can introduce rationality back into the scheme here, right? It's like, it's not you do whatever the fuck you want or it's totalitarianism. That's not how it works. It works like this. We're a nation of laws, and laws are governed by ethics. Like it or not, all laws are informed by a person's ethical worldview. So which ethical worldview you want to make the laws? The people who want 18-year-old girls to put their assholes on OnlyFans, or the people who don't? Which ones would you prefer make the laws of your nation?
But that isn't that just quite a simplistic way of looking at it? For instance, if you look at literature, we had Christians saying certain books shouldn't be published. For instance, Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, a classic of English literature. They didn't want that to be published. They were bowlerizing Shakespeare. But surely you're freedom of speech guy, aren't you?
I mean, to an extent, there's no. So here's my view on rights. What is a right? Let's start with that. What is it?
You tell us.
Well, it's a social construction that we made the fuck up. That's what a right is. If it's something else other than that, tell me what it is. Where is it? I can't see it, touch it, taste it.
So it's the
smell it.
social construction that you have a right not to be forced to wear a mask.
Yeah. Why? What else would it be?
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Like
So where's this going? What's your argument?
Well, the argument is just like rights are made up.
Please read about a history of central banking. Bro, I already have that book. It's one of my favorite. You want me to pull it out right now? Every chapter in there was fire. My jaw was dropped the whole time reading that shit. I was awoken after reading that book. That was my awakening book to a lot of the shit in the world.
Here's
Before all this got popular in the mainstream a couple of years ago, in the last 2 years, I was already on that shit, bro. Catch up.
what's actually true. What's actually true is you have a right to do whatever you can do within the purview of force. And that's it. You have rights because people use force to ensure that you have rights. And the second, people don't ensure that there's force used so that you have rights.
There's also The Creature on Jekyll's Island, and there's one more you should read if you haven't. Fuck. I always forget the third one. I can't remember. Damn.
You don't have them anymore. But the secularist, or in this case, not really the secularist, but the atheist mind or the non-religious mind, they can't ground rights in anything. They made them up. So they don't come from God. They just made them up. So what they're saying is that we just make this shit up and somehow we're just all going to adhere to it, even though there's no overarching real moral duty to do so. Where does it come from? Nowhere. So rights don't even exist.
You say, so I should know everything comes from banks? Caveat. Private banks. What happened when the people gained control of their central banking? Golden ages. What happened when the currency, when fiat, when the people were in control of their currency? It's not banking itself, but a certain kind of banking.
You can't taste them, can't touch them, can't smell them, right? They're just products of the mind.
But come back to me about the D.H. Lawrence.
And usury destroys growth. Usury destroys wealth of an entire nation. This interest rate system that we have is such bullshit. It's just siphoning of money into the hands of the very few. That's actually a really big problem too. Usury will destroy a country.
Polarizing Shakespeare point.
Yeah.
And you clutched your heart as if you were clutching pearls in a kind of mocking way, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that?
Who gives a shit?
I give a shit.
Well, okay, great. Ground it. Ground why I shouldn't outlaw that book. Why is it immoral for me to do that?
Because you are American. You believe in the First Amendment. You believe in freedom of speech.
So you're going to appeal to my morals? So from your view, why is it immoral for me to do that? Why?
Why is it immoral for you to do that?
Yeah.
Because I believe that artistic creation is one of the ways that the human being expresses itself.
Makes sense to me. Notice how you caveated that with I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't believe that. Now what? Now where are we?
Well, that's why we have democracy, so we can adjudicate this, right?
So again, now we're just back to outsource. So as long as I can democratically convince enough people to outlaw that book, yeah.
Well, I get, but that's kind of unavoidable, isn't it? Like if you live in a society where 99 out of 100 people believe that something should be X and you believe Y, I mean, logically speaking, you're going to end up in a society that outlaws X.
You would end up in a society which outlawed X, but that doesn't mean that's right.
No, I agree.
Or
I
wrong,
agree.
right?
But then ultimately you have a choice of whether you choose to live in that society or not, right?
To an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, maybe you have some control over that. But I guess the point I'm making to you is not that I would outlaw this book, right? The point that I'm making to you is that you don't have any justification for me not to. Like, who cares? Oh, you believe that? So? I believe different. What now? What's the media? What is the threshold breaker? Well, now we're just going to appeal to a majority again. Well, if that's the case, then if I appeal to the majority to outlaw the book, bye-bye book.
Andrew, I'm not trying to argue with you for the sake of argument. It's a great, really enjoyable conversation, actually. I appreciate the way that you stay calm and on the point, but I'm not clear what point you're trying to make here, particularly with this Shakespeare thing. Like
rights or force? That's my point.
No, I agree with you on that. Ultimately, in practice, that is what happens. But what are you trying to say?
It's not ultimately in practice what happens. It's even philosophically the case from the non-Christian view. When you say things like, "Don't you appeal to the First Amendment or this right?" Right? That's what I'm getting at. Okay. Don't you appeal to this right? This right, we need to have the adult conversation. Doesn't even exist. It's just a social construction that we made up and it was pinned on a piece of paper and we pretend that it's something we actually adhere to. But it's really not. Well, violate it constantly. I don't care.
Yeah. You argue about, and that's why you have a judiciary system to adjudicate whether you are right. But I mean, it's not just some random people wrote it down. It's the founders of your country wrote it down because they were trying to set a set of rules for this society to operate by in order to fulfill what they thought would be a vision of a new country that would be a good one.
One thing that doesn't get talked about.
Founders, what they wrote down was based on a massive compromise because beforehand they had the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles of Confederation made each little kind of state, which wasn't a state even really then, their own nations. And it didn't work out very well because they couldn't regulate trade or raise armies or things like this. So what they did via the compromise was they had a 10th Amendment. Now, the 10th Amendment says that all the rights that are not given to the federal government are given to the states respectively. And at our founding, almost every single state had a state religion. Almost all of them.
Well, of course, and they were religious people.
And they continue to have them. Clear up until there was an interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which was widely viewed as being unconstitutional to this day. States were always allowed to have their own religion and put in their own religious practices, and those practices were to be adhered to if you wanted to hold office, if you wanted to swear oaths, if you wanted to do things like this. That was part and parcel of American society and the way that we did things. Now that has changed as progressives have kind of demonized the whole idea that that's against the First Amendment, and it's like, well. No, it ain't. And it was part of the initial compromise anyway. When we're talking about the idea of rights, to get this back to the idea of rights, right? Why is it that states don't have the right to do that? Well, it's because there's an interpretation of an amendment. And then they said, well, you no longer have the right to have your own religions inside of these states. That's what they did. I was like, and who has the force? They do. So everything really comes down when you're talking about rights to the ideas of force. And the reason that that's so important to understand is because this republic, when we moved it towards a direct democracy, the reason that that's going to fail is because people don't understand this concept that.
Someone said the golden age of America ended when we got off the gold standard. Brother, the golden age in America ended the moment the fucking central bank was created. And then you started getting income taxed. America got all its wealth without a central bank and income tax.
At Hag North of Viking 6584 donated $5. How does everyone feel about the video I recommend?
It's dope, bro. It's actually good. Yeah, America was already declining by the time the central bank was created. Or I would say that's when it actually started accelerating. Remember, this is like Caesar in Rome. The decline started already. The central bank was a symptom of the decline. Because the founding fathers all argued against, well, some were arguing for a central banking system, but a vast majority of the founders and after were vehemently opposed to central banking for this kind of reason.
Rights only exist as some kind of like bizarre social construct if they're not grounded in God. How does a secular society uphold rights? How?
But how do you uphold your right not to have to wear a mask in the middle of a pandemic through scripture or God?
You would still utilize it through force.
Right.
The scripture doesn't prevent you from utilizing force. With this idea of like Christian pacifism and Christians being pussies, I don't know where that came from.
Britain, I think.
Boy, that was never.
So what about the teachings of Jesus Christ?
Which ones? Which ones do you want to dive into?
Well, I was raised as Catholic, so I'm not as well versed in scripture as you. When he was on the cross, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do.
Of course. And you should forgive people. I absolutely agree with that. I may forgive a man who attempted to rape my wife.
Right. I hate that argument. I don't read my Bible. It's been a while, but you're also told to trade in your cloak, no? I mean, Orthodox Christianity has way more verses about war, killing, revenge, and just fighting in general than the Protestant side. And Catholic side has some too, but the Protestants really took out a lot of those verses. What is it Saint Olga? So that's an Orthodox verse that's not in the Protestant, right? So, the story of Olga, she basically got revenge on the man that killed her husband, and that's celebrated in the Bible. It's a very violent story that you learn about. And there are other stories like that you learn about, but that's because Orthodox Christianity was forged under a system under like occupation by the Ottoman Empire. And they were constantly at war or being oppressed. So there's a lot of verses in Orthodox Christianity that are still in the book that are about surviving oppression and things like Olga and that story and other things of that nature. The Catholic interpretation has a bit more, I wouldn't want to say empire-like, but they're missing some of the versions in Orthodox Christianity that says to persevere under prosecution. There's a lot of being prosecuted in Orthodox Christianity. There's a lot of verses about prosecution, how to persevere through it as a Christian. Less so in Catholic Christianity, and then almost none in like the Protestant one in comparison, which is very interesting to see how each region in Europe, because the Catholics were essentially like what inherited from the Roman Empire. So they always had a empirical view, an empire's view of the world, dominance and taking over in our way. And then you had the Orthodox Christians that were essentially forced into subjugation by another empire, the Ottoman. And then you had the Protestants that were just way, way over there, just doing their own shit.
But I'm going to kill him in the attempt. Right? Like, which thing's contradictory here? It's like, I can forgive my enemies, but that doesn't mean I need to let them crush me. I can forgive people who have done me wrong. Doesn't mean I need to let them do me more wrong. I can forgive people for doing horrible acts against me. Doesn't mean I need to continue to let them do horrible acts against me. Christian ethics has been widely bastardized by progressive leftists as being some kind of like hippie religion. It is definitely not. It never has been, and I don't know where that came from. Yes, it's true the teachings of Jesus Christ are very heavy on loving your neighbor and understanding forgiveness and understanding the mode of sin, and that most people are going to engage in sin, so we need the forgiveness of Jesus Christ for that. That's true. But it's not a pacifistic religion, and it never has been Jesus told one of his disciples to sell a cloak and buy a sword. But these were not pacifists. Jesus ran money changers out of a temple with a braided cord that he made out of leather and whipped them out of the temple. So, like, I don't know where the idea of pacifism came from. He called them serpents. He called people serpents, whitewashed tombs. He called them all sorts of names. These were killable offenses in his day.
I don't know enough about scripture to challenge you, but it's interesting what you said. But what I wanted to get back to, so this idea of bowdlerizing Shakespeare, cancelling books, etc. I guess for me, now thinking about it, is the reason that it's not good is that you begin to silence ideas. And what Christianity did, and not solely Christianity, but other religions did, is it silenced scientists and people making breakthrough in the scientific fields. And I guess the ultimate example is people be worrying that essentially in schools is we'd be back to teaching creationism, for example, if certain Christians were in charge and presented creationism as fact.
Why couldn't you just have a compromise there where you say, okay, you can learn either, or you can learn neither? That should be up to the parents, don't you think? The education standards for their kids. Why should that be up to the state? Do you think the state should have control over that? Or do you think the parents should? So if the parents say, yeah, you know, I don't really want them to learn evolution, why can't they opt them out?
Because evolution has been proven to be scientifically correct.
That's not your business, what people do with their kids' education. That's their business, right?
Okay, well then why can't I raise my child to be a jihadist?
So you're going to raise your kid.
What the fuck? Bruh, that's your okay. I don't even know. How the fuck is your argument there? Well, why can't you raise your kid to be a jihadist? Well, one has the implicit threat of subjugating somebody else based on like holy scripture. You don't want to teach your kid, say, evolution or creationism is not an apples to apples comparison, because him learning creationism or evolution is going to make him go out into the streets to kill people, to convert them, like jihad tells them to do. What the fuck? What kind of argument is that? I guess it's a reduction of like the logic all the way down to, well, then you could just teach people creation or to be jihadis.
Yago King donated $2. Glasses wanted to use scripture to make his argument, but when he got called out on his argument, he folded.
Yeah, he's folding on this argument too, talking about jihadis. That
Blow
makes
people
no
up.
sense.
No, but well, why not? I mean, if you say it's not your business, then it's not your business.
Yeah, well, I mean, can
One has the implicit threat of blowing people up, though. So you're threatening society.
you stop parents from raising their kids to be a jihadist?
You can.
How?
You can make sure that within the confines of a school that they're not learning it. We have had schools in the UK where people have been, there's Islamist values, and those schools have been closed down.
Okay, so why is it in school that you're supposed to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and you're supposed to learn science as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying, well, this is a scientific fact, so kids need to learn it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So parents say, well, I dispute this fact, right? I'm not going to teach my kid evolution. How does that hamstring the kid exactly? Like what about that's going to hamstring the child?
What's going to happen? Well, maybe they want to be a scientist. Maybe the way that they see the world, you're actually taking out a fundamental part of their understanding of the world and how it works.
That's a strictly materialistic view, and it's silly.
Is it?
What about the ideas of metaphysical accounting for metaphysical things, like the laws that are immaterial, the laws of logic, things like this?
I think they should be taught in school as well.
I don't understand. They're not proven facts.
Got him.
Even though you believe in them, they're not proven facts.
God,
but you
his
still want
ass.
them
That
taught
was
in school.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the Bible's not a proven fact, and you want that taught in school?
Yeah, I believe you should learn the Bible as
Great.
part of a religious studies
that's-
education.
Well, that's fantastic. Great. Okay, here's my compromise.
Because
then.
now I tell you
can
what-
teach
Hold on, let
evolution.
him finish.
You can teach evolution, or you can teach creationism, or you can teach both. The parents can have the kids do both, or do neither, which is exactly what I said before. You say same thing. They should teach both.
No,
They're both
no,
contradictory.
that's not what I was saying. I was saying that you should teach evolution because it has been scientifically proven.
Oh, sorry, brother. No, it isn't. It's not a law. It's not a law of science.
A damp
It's a
911
working
donated
theory.
$5. Help me understand something. Why is it one extreme to another in situations like this? I see both political sides doing this. If one side doesn't agree with the other, it's always based on extremes?
It's the leftist framework to tear down an argument. He's very leftist in this argument, so he's always going to bring up. I mean, they consider him like center right, I guess, but over on this side, what we're on, he gives the leftist style accounting for arguments that don't adhere to his worldview, because he thinks his worldview is the moral one. So being gay is not immoral. Teaching evolution is not immoral. It's correct. Why? Because of the science. Well, what is the science? Well, the science says that's exactly the argument.
But you should also teach the Bible, and you say this is what Christians believe, and it's up to you whether you believe it or not.
Okay. So then I don't understand why. So let me ask it a different way. Is it the case that if you're a religious Christian, that your kid should have to sit through sex education hearing about homosexual sex?
They should have to hearing about homosexual sex. No, they shouldn't. I believe that.
Why not?
Why not?
Hold on, let me finish. I think there's an important distinction here between different types of sex education. Showing kids porn, as some of your schools do, it shouldn't happen irrespective of whether it's sexual, homosexual, whatever, straight, whatever. Yep, so that's an important distinction.
Well, you have to show them porn. Like, I remember when I went through sex ed, they
Right. So again, you saw how he went to the extreme. Interesting. So he has no counter to his argument, really. So you go to the extreme. Okay, well, sex ed is now porn. Okay, so what? People go into the classroom and just perform pornographic acts, and that's the only way you could learn? No, dude, you can put up an image of what a penis looks like, what a vagina looks like, how it works biologically. It's nothing sexual. Why do we have to go to the extreme end of like, there's people fucking in the classroom? It's anatomy, biology. It's very simple. Nothing sexual about it.
Showed the naked human body, walked through, showed you these are what breasts are, these are what ovaries are, this is what this is, this is what this is, this is where babies come from. Didn't appear overtly, it wasn't pornographic.
Right.
You do the same exact thing with homosexuality, right? But why do you think that religious fundamentalists should be able to opt their kids out of that?
I don't believe that we should be teaching. I think sex ed should be about I think sex ed should primarily be about safety, actually.
That's it?
Primarily be about safety, and also about how the biological functions work when you have children, etc.
So you don't want it taught in school at all?
What, sex ed? Yeah. Yes.
You do?
Yes,
okay,
I do.
Great. So then why do you want the parents' ability to tell their teachers, hey, I want to opt my kid out of this? If you're going to be talking about gay sex, you're going to be talking about this, you're going to be talking about that. I want to opt them out of that.
Right. I don't think you should include gay sex in the curriculum.
Why though?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I believe that it actually could offend religious minorities.
Oh,
okay.
what?
Just like,
wow. It could offend religious minorities, eh? Okay.
creationism, right?
Right? No, not like creation. Not like Darwin. No, but when you have
God is
evolution,
ass.
that is a scientific fact. That is a scientific.
I actually wouldn't go quite that far. It's a scientific theory that's currently accepted. But look, this is
the
actually
distinction between theory and fact. I mean,
well, this is actually. I mean, it's interesting because just so.
Wow. Why though? Well, the Muslims in my country, you know, they're a religious fundamentalist and they don't want to learn their kids. They shouldn't be taught about gay sex. They're going to riot. Okay, so your entire argument is mute then. So, you don't want to teach gay sex. Oh, okay, but kids should learn about evolution. Okay, but why can't they be taught both? Well, we should because it's a science fact. Okay, so what about gay sex? Can we teach kids about? No, we can't do that. Why? Because the Muslims. Huh?
So, you see, all of this will get condensed into clips on the internet where it's like this person destroyed that person, which is really not the angle of conversation for us. Really trying to explore the arguments. I mean, I would say a stronger version of your argument is, should parents be able to opt their children out of being taught that climate change is real? Right? Because that's where you're going to get someone like Francis or me to go, yeah, I think they should be able to opt out of that, right? Even though that's the scientifically accepted consensus.
Well, I'm not here for destruction.
No,
none of us are.
But let me come back to a point that I think Francis made that you haven't addressed, which I think is a strong argument. What about the jihadi thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, should devout Muslim families be able to create schools according to this devolvement of religion to the states or whatever, where they teach that particular worldview?
No.
Because
I believe in Christian ethics as the dominant force in society. And since that's the case, I would take
Allah enforcing your worldview and identity on everybody who lives in your country, backed by government power, force. You don't get to come to this country and teach anything other than the dominant culture, and society would function better.
Tailor laws towards Christian ethics being the dominant force in society.
So there would be no schools that taught anything except Christian ethics.
No, it wouldn't be that they would teach nothing but Christian ethics, but we could definitely tailor laws against jihadist ethics, or definitely tailor laws against even importing Muslims at all. The hell are we importing Muslims here for anyway? We don't need them here. Never needed them here. Diversity is our strength. Has not been a strength having Muslims here. The idea that we can't tailor or craft legislation and laws around the things that our children learn, or at least what you can opt into and out of. Let's just say, for consistency's sake, sure, you could teach your kid, I guess, theoretically to be a jihadist, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing a secular state can do about it either, except not let them come in. And then it's really hard to train your kid to be a jihadist, right? Because you're not here.
Well, so from a policy level, this is kind of ultimately comes back to the final question, I suppose, of what is, do you call yourself a Christian nationalist? Is that your...
I would say Christian populist.
Okay.
Christian nationalism is often conflated with forms of ethno-nationalism, and people do use it as a cloak for ethno-nationalism. I would fall more in line with what's called cultural nationalism. You guys, I think, from watching your content, would fall more in line with probably civic nationalism. So cultural nationalism is talking about the glue which holds cultures together. And the ethno-nationalists obviously believe that's your race, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that race is not enough to hold a nation together. There has to be some kind of cultural glue, and that usually comes from religion. So all the laws that I can see seem to be informed by ethics, and those ethics seem to almost universally be informed by Christianity.
Right, but that worldview falls apart when you look at Japan, because Japan doesn't have a religion. So how do you counter Japan as an example?
So you would you'd support mass migration from Christian countries?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't understand. I want my domestic population to grow. So if I want to tailor the best outcomes for my society, then
Right. So the ethno-nationalists would have a point. So if Japan is ethno-nationalist, yeah, if Japan could be considered ethno-nationalist. China could be considered ethno-nationalist. South Korea could be considered ethno-nationalist. All of the successful East Asian countries are considered ethno-nationalist. Which country, or say which system, the East Asian system or the Christian or the European system in general, which has more cohesion? Which group of people operate as one? Which group of people have a stronger national identity? Which group of people have a stronger tie to culture, family, and values? I would say East Asians. Currently, in the current state that we're in, East Asians. When people say, well, East Asians have no personality, they act as one. Well, that's exactly what they're talking about. They're unified. Well, what are they unified around? Because it's not religion. Japanese people don't unify around religion like Christians do in the West. Japanese people unify around being Japanese, their ethnicity. Chinese people unify around being Chinese, not Buddhism. When a Chinese person describes themselves, Buddhist isn't the first thing they'll say. They say they're Chinese. A Korean identifies themselves based on their Koreanness. That's ethnic nationalism. So I don't agree with his point there. Yeah. Only because those societies exist and they're functioning and they're safer and there's plenty of wealth that was created. But again, going back to the corporatist argument, they also are experiencing a degradation and a decline in their society too, but it's a different reason. They're not experiencing the decline because they lost their religion, they lost their Christianity. That's a unique problem we applied ourselves here as Westerners. We blame our ills on the fact that people aren't as religious, they don't believe in Jesus like they used to. But that same decline is found in atheist societies like Japan, where they don't believe in a God. Chinese, same thing. South Korean, same thing. And they've experienced similar levels of decline, but the only system or the only thing that we have in common between both cultures is the corporate framework for which we live under.
I want my domestic population to grow. I want those families to be very happy. I want them to have the biggest slice of that American dream, right? Because I'm Christian, but also a nationalist. So the idea here is...
Right. So he's saying cultural nationalism, not civnats. So these two are supposed to be civic nationalists. So basically a country can be multiculturalism. Their argument is multiculturalism works as long as there's a instituted government form of civics. We're all bought into the system. So we could be whatever, which I don't think the civnats have that right. I think civic nationalists don't understand that ethnicity. What the ethno-nationalists understand is that ethnicity matters, blood matters, soil matters, shared cultural history matters. Like you can't think of a guy across the street as your kin. For example, me looking at a black guy as like having the same kinship as I would look at another, for example, being in Romania as a Romanian, and you see a guy whose historical record and of his blood and of his lineage in this land had gone through similar things that mine went through. The same wars, the same founding of the country, the same prosecution, survival, formation of the state, all that stuff, deeply tied by blood. My father and his father and fathers before our fathers, great-grandfathers, down to the beginning of a country. That shared sense of brotherhood, it can never be replicated. For example, in America, here I open my door and there's a Mexican family to the right, and I'm supposed to feel that same level of brotherhood with that Mexican man, although we're both living under the American flag. This is what the civnats don't understand. This stuff is rooted deep. It's a psychological thing. We're apes and we have our tribes, and our tribes are formed by our ethnicity, even beyond skin color. Like Europe, obviously there's many kinds of white people. There's different tribes, different countries, different cultures, and languages within the white tribe, and they have formed states and have gone to war and killed each other, although they look the same. So ethnic nationalism in the end probably wins out, just to be honest. Asia is a perfect example of this. Their societies will most likely outlive the CivNat style stuff they're pushing for and saying America should be. Which system is more stable? Of course, it's the homogenous one. Yeah.
Yago King donated $2. Japan did have a religion pre-Christianity. It was called Shinto.
And he's saying what? Cultural nationalism? So he's trying to say as long as we're all Christians, right? So Andrew's viewpoint on this is he's saying it doesn't matter what you are, where you come from, as long as you're Christian, we're the same. Aha. Okay, so he's saying he would rather have a Christian Nigerian than, say, an atheist British person, an atheist Irish person. Interesting. So he's saying the cultural glue that can hold a country together simply is under the religious view. If all of us would be denominated Christian, period, then there wouldn't be any issues. It wouldn't matter where you're from, what you look like, and all that other shit, because we're all Christian first. Yeah, well, obviously, Christianity has too many denominations. Yeah, and there's some Christians that support gay marriage, but that's considered heresy anyway. So those churches would be, I guess, in Andrew's point of view, those aren't real churches, and that's heretic ideology to be pushing anyways. I don't see how this society could possibly thrive long term. He would be instituting Christian first policies, but he won't enforce. How do you enforce Christianity? You can't enforce Christianity in someone's mind. People can pretend to be Christian, but then privately in their own home, for example, practice another religion or don't practice a religion at all. What happens when a certain group or a certain portion of the population grows large enough in political influence and they challenge Christianity directly? Oh, what happens when a certain amount of people stop believing because maybe the way they were treated by the Christian first principles? So think about that for a second. So if a system is inherently unstable because you can't enforce someone's idea in their mind, you must be Christian first. What is one thing that works on a longer term? Well, I can enforce you being white easily because no enforcement is needed. You're white. So a Japanese government doesn't have to enforce Japanese-ness in the people in order to keep their identity coherent and bound by each other because they're simply Japanese. It's innate. So a nation that's innately bound by race is stronger in coherence than a nation that's bound by idea like religion, like a Christian first nation. Think about it.
At Totha Chickens donated $2. Russia is making a go at it. An example.
And Russia's failing, yeah.
At Hagnartha Viking 6584 donated $5. He said the nationalist part will ban importing foreigners.
He did, but America's already culturally diverse, or I wouldn't say racially diverse. So his worldview, he's fighting against Muslim invasion. That's what he's saying. He would not bring in Muslims because Islam is counter to, it would compete with Christian morals and ethics. Okay, if you have an entire nation of multiracial people and you enforce Christian ethics, won't some people have a higher affinity towards race? I think there's a lot of people that would describe themselves, let's say, black first, then Christian. What has more affinity to you? Your skin or the thought in your head? Would a black man identify himself as black first or Christian first? Would you, as a white man or Hispanic man or whatever, do you identify yourself as what you see, what you experience first, or the shared idea? I think that affinity is much stronger. The moment I see somebody and they're white, we have an affinity immediately by how you look. Then I find out the idea in your head after speaking to you. That's how it works. A black man, me standing next to another black man, if a black man's looking at us, he immediately has an affinity for the other black guy. More so. He's able to connect more, be more relaxed, have more relation to that person. Then immediately, these are just two Christians. We're all the same. We don't see skin color. There's no difference. We're Christian. We have the same morals and ethics. I don't buy that. I don't think I buy that. I think that is a kind of liberal washing in order to bring up Christian morals and ethics to the masses. That doesn't sound like ethno-nationalism that bypasses the sensibilities of leftists and independents. I think that's what it really is. That's a great way to have a liberal take on the true answer, which is always tied to your skin color. It just is. It just is. And we can't escape it because we're apes and we grew up in tribes. And it's a psychological thing, literally. We can't fix it. We have prejudices based on the differences that we have just on what we can see, skin color. And that affects how we, of course, you can be around different people and have a set rule and how you behave. And it's not like you lose your mind, but your affinity, that natural innateness that you can relate. Who do you relate to the most is the one that looks most like you. It's that simple. It has nothing to do with like being racist or supremacist or anything. It's just, how do you relate to the world and the people around you? Well, it's the people that look most like you. That's it. It's tribal.
Nation first. Me importing a bunch of people from other countries, not putting my nation first, putting their nation first. So my list of priorities would be God, nation, right? Or I'm sorry, God, family, nation.
Someone said, not ethnicity is more than skin color. You're being low IQ. No, it isn't. No, it isn't, because when an outside threat happens, your tribe will coalesce around race first. So ethnicity is the divide you get once you've stabilized the society. So, you know, a Southern German versus a Northern German, they used to go to war. Then they've drawn a border, and now these Southern Germans talk with a twang, and they're a little different. And then over time, you can call that a different ethnicity, and maybe they turn into Austrians or something like that. So then you have the Germans in Germany, and then you have the Austrians in Austria, but they speak the same language, but they call themselves different people, ethnically Austrian. Okay, but then if you threaten one of them or both of them at the same time, they will rally around what? If you threaten multiple groups that were divided around ethnic lines, they rally around what? Race, I would say. Russian isn't my tribe? What do you mean? Oh, you're saying a Russian isn't your tribe? Yeah, but if you were facing extinction as a white person, if there were some force that were threatening all whites equally, like whites were threatened with, you would then ally with a nice white, blonde, blue-haired Russian from Moscow together, because the outside force has to be great enough to break down your ethnic differences. So yeah, because it's a tribe that's expanding. First, you're closest to the people in your village. Then the next is the region, the area you're in, and you got your little twang, like Southerners, and they speak Southern, but it's the same shit saying Romania. The Northerners have a different little dialect than the Southerners, same people. But then they'll relate apart from one another. And then you have the country. And then Romania is a perfect example of this, because there's Moldova that got broken apart, that the Soviet Union took a piece of Romania, broke it off, turned it into a buffer state. So now you literally have Romanians and Moldovans, the same exact people, but they consider themselves different. Ethnically different. The Moldovans are ethnically different. It's not. It's the same people. But okay, they can call themselves ethnically different. But if there was ever a war that threatened Romanians and Moldovans, they then combine against the threat. They're the same people at that point. Their affinity to one another is still tighter than it would ever be with a Christian Nigerian. An Orthodox Christian in Nigeria coming to Romania will never have, under a Christian country like Romania, the same affinity that a Romanian and a different ethnic consideration of a Moldovan would have. A Romanian and a Moldovan will have more ethnic unity and affinity towards one another than any other person that calls themselves also Christian Orthodox, because the idea comes second.
A damned 911 donated $5. I enjoy learning about this stuff. I've read the Bible, Quran, Torah and I'm reading the 13 volumes of Buddhism now. It's very interesting to me. They all say pretty much the same thing. Be a good, respectful person. Seems simple to me.
Yeah. Someone said Americans are trying hard to convince themselves that ethnicity doesn't matter because their country is now less than 50% white, and they will learn the hard way that it is the most important thing. Keck. Well, you could see it in the political space, how Americans have to vie for power based on ethnic enclaves. We must appease the Hispanics. We must appease the whites. We must appease the blacks. We must appease the Asians. And yeah.
So culture and borders are very important for the nation.
And so, so you're not a Christian nationalist, cultural nationalist. So describe to me the America that you want. What does it look like? What are the?
You mean by tomorrow?
Well,
so you say he's not a Christian nationalist. So what is culture? What is
tomorrow?
Well, you seemed very keen on this idea, which I'm sure you're excited about. What I mean is, ultimately, you want to transform America into something that it used to be or that you'd like it to be or whatever. Let's not argue about that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's just say you want America to be a certain way.
Because they said with a Christian nationalist, but he didn't call himself a Christian nationalist. So maybe I misspoke. So he's not talking about Christian nationalism?
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. What does it look like once you've got to that destination? Once you've got to that perfect America, which represents your values as someone who's really interested in Christianity being the dominant force in society? What can you do? How is it different from what we have to do?
So while I would say that there's this is a bit of like hypothetical utopianism, of course, as long as you're granting me that this is a bit of hypothetical utopianism. So let's say I was King Wilson tomorrow. I'm King Andrew Wilson, and my decrees and edicts go out to all of the land. First thing, mass migration, that's gone immediately. Next thing is focusing on domestic birth rates and domestic birth policies and trying to move.
And someone said, and that's a good flaw that you're trying to bring up. I don't believe it's a flaw. It says the argument is that Europe has been going to war with itself for 1,000 years, for thousands of years. Yeah, because no outside force threatened Europe. So the point was Europe could go to war with itself over hills, over forests, over who lived on the other side of the river. And they all looked the same because those little groups were the ones that were fighting for resources and power and territory. There was never an outside group of a different race. Well, there was technically, and then you saw that Europe banded together and put shit aside. What was it? The Huns and then the Golden Horde with Genghis Khan. So when there was an outside threat, those groups that previously had issues did band together temporarily to repel the attack. So you had Poles coming together to help Hungary and the Austrian Empire and fight on the same team. But you could say that was under, what could you say that was under? You say, why so extreme though? Because unfortunately, it takes that level of extreme. And there's nuance there because I'm thinking of the Winged Hussars, and that was against Islam and shit like that. The stuff with Genghis Khan was a bit different in that sense. And Western Europe was still, it wasn't under threat, so there was no need to come save the East. Regardless, why so extreme is because it takes death and war for people to come together. Like, if we live on opposite sides of the river and you're getting attacked by some tribe on that side of the river, it's not my business and I'm not going to come to save you. Even if we look the same, we're different. Maybe we have slightly different dialect. And in normal times where there's no outsider threat, we usually attack each other because I want what you have on your side of the river. But then a greater outside force comes and starts to threaten us both. So then we will combine, whether temporarily or permanently, to survive the outside threat. It's just tribalism scaled up. But that tribalism means that it is skin deep, unfortunately. It's not an idea that molds us together because clearly there's different ideas everywhere. Think about it. And those different ideas, even amongst diverse people, never held them together. There's always been the multiculturalism that has broken apart a nation.
America back to a one-income family. The best way to do that.
Yeah, you have to explain this to people. Yeah, Poles helping the Austrians with the Turkish invasion in Vienna, the final battle in Vienna. And then somebody said, funny enough, the soonest that threat was repelled, Austria attacked Poland. Yeah, do you see what I mean? It's the same shit. It's hard. People don't want to accept this because that would admit it's over then for America. If it is the fact that multiculturalism cannot work in a democracy, if it is the fact that diversity kills identity and a shared belief, and not just a shared belief, but skin in the game, in the system. You don't feel like you have skin in the game. If you don't have a shared identity, you don't have civic duty. You don't have a sense of civic duty. So if you lack a sense of civic duty, you don't want to invest in your country. Well, if that is the product of multiculturalism and diversity, then that means that eventually you will destroy a country by making it diverse and multicultural, because you erode the morale, the civic sense, and the duty of the people, because they no longer relate to one another because they're from different walks of life. And so that means, yet again, the circle comes back to, well, that means we need a nation that's of one people, don't we? To maintain high moral identity, values, trust, culture that requires one people. If you accept that premise, that means America's end is guaranteed. The downfall is inevitable. This is why Americans have such a struggle with coming to terms with that shit. And they're always trying to push like Christian nationalism, civic nationalism, because they think that's going to save America. But the irony is that America was at its strongest when it was majority white, like a super majority white, 95%. They're always saying, but we worked because look at America's founding. It was many different European people that came over. You had people from England. You had people from Ireland. You had the Italians. But they were what? White. But they were white. You had an ethnocentric, fully white, with a very small minority black country, a super majority white that were able to assimilate with one another under one identity. You don't have that anymore. You just have multiple people now from all over the world. How do you enforce an identity? It's so simple. Like, even when you go watch a movie, let's say it's the 1940s, 30s, and you watch a movie and it's of a white man and a white woman and whatever the fuck's happening. If you're an Italian or a Greek or a German or a Brit or a whatever, you could look at that white man. You don't know what white country he's from, but he is white first. And so you can relate to the character. You have an affinity for the story simply because he's white. That's it. Nowadays, this is why they try to make the cast so diverse. You must have a black character, LGBTQ character. You must have a woman. Then you must have a gay couple. Because everybody needs representation in order to what? To have an affinity, a relation to the story. They must be able to feel something. They must be able to see themselves in the character. Well, how do you see yourself in the character? Well, first it's race. Then they do ideology like LGBTQ. But you see how they diversify the cast by race first, then ideas? Because they know race is the most important part, where that's what people feel the most affinity to. So I think, again, the strength of this nation was when it was the least diverse, the most homogenous. And as it became more and more diverse, the civic spirit of the country has died. And thus you see the crumbling of the institutions around us.
At Hag North Viking 6584 donated $50.
Thanks, bro.
This discussion reminds me of another video I just emailed the link for. Obviously, this is for the next time you have free time. Here's my lobbying money.
Thank you for the lobbying, bro. We'll open it because you've been sending absolute fire. I love these kinds of discussions. I wish I could have them live with somebody. They'd be very interesting.
Yeah, Cooking donated $2. Maybe I'm an exception, but I don't identify with the Mexicans I grew up. I never believed in that La Raza bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And the La Raza shit is very interesting, right? Think of that, La Raza. That's very interesting as well. The race. You see, they talk about the race. And it's in the forefront of the consciousness of anybody that identifies as Mexican, for the race. Do you see? That's a perfect example. I forgot about all that. It's not that we're Catholics first. It's La Raza, the race.
At Totha Chickens donated $2. Everest, the new American god.
Thank you.
Is to prioritize from the government level down that women do not defer their childbearing years for college, right? But rather you offer massive incentives to families for them to get married younger, right? Stay at home, have babies with their husband. And if you contract them from the workforce, wages are going to necessarily skyrocket. The second you begin contracting women from the workforce, wages are going to shoot through the roof, especially if you're not filling those roles with migrants. So those would be some of the very first policies that I would put in place. I'd ban porn, I'd ban gay marriage. I'd put in some kinds of laws which had dominion over the airwaves when it came to degeneracy, right? Meaning, I don't think you should turn on Fox or, Channel 32 and see naked women. I don't think that that's good for the public. I don't think it's particularly useful. I would probably outlaw smartphones, or put age restrictions on smartphones, probably till you were like 18 years old. There would be some pretty restrictive things that I would put in place, but it would also maximize human ethical flourishing, right? The idea here is like, why do kids need to be looking at smartphones and training their brain towards smartphones? It's been terrible for them.
No, we just did recorded an episode on it. Well, several actually. So I agree with you on that. And is it important to you that that outcome is arrived at democratically? That like you persuade half the country that this is the way to be?
So ultimately, the views of what's best for the nation, that's what's going to be first and foremost in my brain, right? Yes, the religious aspect, it's always going to be God first, but from like the things that I can do something about, it's going to be from the national level. The nation that we have is a checks and balance based republic.
Interesting. Am I getting fascist vibes? That's what Hitler was saying. I'm going to put nation first, but Andrew's wrapping it in Christian ethics. But he's going to institute things that help what? Pronatalist policies, people getting houses earlier. He already talked about tax breaks for having 3-4 kids. Brother. National socialism is the word you're looking for. Let me hear that.
So obviously I'm going to work within the confines of that in order to make as many compelling and convincing arguments and as many compelling and convincing things I can possibly do to move people towards this view. But remember, the problem with democracy, the big hole in it, is you can democratically remove it. So you can vote out democracy. It's built in right into democracy to be able to do that.
This. Hold on.
And the most American thing you can do is
NatSoc, huh?
To remove amendments and put in new amendments. We do it all the time, right?
And is that what you'd prefer? You don't want America to be a direct democracy?
No.
What would you like it to be?
I would like it to be what it used to be at the beginning, which is a state.
He's doing a little hybrid. Like a founding republic. You have to have skin in the game to vote. Small portion of the population votes. So he's doing a NatSoc mixed with the founding republic principles, huh? I see what you did there, Mr. Wilson.
At Count Chad the Impaler donated $5. Why is democracy so sacrosanct? Brainwashing at birth? My democracy has accelerated collapse.
Yep. The two-party system. The goy slop of bread and circuses. The harder you vote, the more shit stays the same, eh?
Stakeholder democracy at the very least.
What does that mean?
It means you're either going to have like one household voting, right?
There it
so
is.
that we're not dividing husbands and wives because it's really stupid. Or it means that you're going to have some kind of stake in property or perhaps 4 years of unpaid public service before you can vote. There has to be some skin in the
There it is. NatSoc with a little bit of Republican values sprinkled in.
game, in other words. I'd also raise the voting age, probably to 25. Right?
Yeah.
I think.
Would women be allowed to vote?
I mean, to at least the degree that men are.
Let me hear this. I gotta hear this.
I don't want men to vote for the most part either. I don't think it's a great idea.
But it would be equal between men and women in your view. Really? It doesn't sound like it. If you want a household, well, what I mean is, it sort of sounds like. Well, forgive me if I'm misunderstanding this. Genuinely, you'd like people to get married and to vote as a household, which I imagine would kind of mean that the head of the family, which is the husband, would
typically the man.
That.
Yes.
And if a woman isn't married, presumably she wouldn't be getting a vote, partly for that reason. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What's wrong with that system? Sounds great.
I'm just interested in explaining. Well, it sounds great to you. I'm just interested in.
The thing is like, it's really hard. It's really difficult. When people think of things like, what's the argument against this? This is an immutable character. How could you argue that women shouldn't be able to vote or that men shouldn't be able to vote? It's like, well, at our founding, they couldn't. Women could not vote.
Well, at your founding, as you said yourself, you had slavery, right? So things do change over time.
Sure, but the thing is like...
Sometimes in a good direction.
Sure, and sometimes in a bad direction.
Oh, absolutely.
So the thing is like, the idea that they had there was that most men couldn't vote. There was no universal suffrage for men, including slaves, right? For the most part, were men. And women couldn't vote because most people weren't allowed to vote. Now, the arguments against women voting are pretty simple. And the idea is landholdership and force. right? Can women utilize force in order to maintain land? The answer is no. Generally, that takes men. So the biggest, if you're looking at feminism, for instance, you had the anti-suffragettes and then the suffragettes. But the anti-suffragettes arguments were way better. The argument was pretty simple. It just worked like this. You cannot erode or get rid of the patriarchy because you always have to appeal to it for your rights. And that's a fundamental truth. And since that's a fundamental truth, I've never seen a great reason why women should be able to vote. Because they can vote to send men to war that they themselves do not have to go fight. They are not beholden to the draft. Only men are. And they can say, well, you're not beholden to the draft, perhaps because you're too old for it. But you were beholden to the draft when you were not too old for it. So your time could have come.
At Utangiki 789 donated €5.
Thank you, brother.
YTV filter sorry for language. Chakas in South Af chanting about healing vanillas are all Christian. Good example, right, of what you were saying.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So his argument is, let me hear that again. 1 second.
It's pretty simple. It just worked like this. You cannot erode or get rid of the patriarchy because you always have to appeal to it for your rights.
Okay.
At Count Chad the Impaler donated $10. Fractal relationarchy. 55-person neighborhood votes for one leader. That leader joins 14 others and votes for one higher leader, and so on up 7 levels. Dunbar's number, how many people you can know, is at 150.
Yeah. 150 until you stop caring, right? That's as much as our brain can hold. About 150 people until we basically lose, what could you say, humanity with them? You can't math societies together, yeah. I mean, if we know our limitations for our tribe is around 150 people, and then anything larger than that, we struggle to relate with them. Again, I wouldn't even go into that argument again.
Other way around and say women are able to vote, men are able to vote on things that affect women that don't affect men.
Like?
Well, all kinds of things. For example, their right to vote. I mean, among other things. But, things to do with sexual health, abortion, all kinds of things, right?
Well, I don't understand. Abortion does have to do with men.
Okay, fine. I mean, it does, but it has more to do with women because it affects them more directly. But lots of other things. I mean, men could pass a law that women have to wear a headscarf, for example, right? So our votes affect each other. That's not an argument to deny the other sex the vote.
Oh, I don't understand.
Your argument is women can vote to send men to war. And
no,
my argument
is it's called force doctrine. My argument reduces to this. If you always have to appeal to one sex for your rights, right?
You have
then
no rights.
why are you being imbued with the responsibility of that at all? Because women have to appeal to men for the rights, and anytime men want to take rights away from women, they can, like that. And there's not a damn thing women can do about it. And if you want proof of that, let me show you half the world. Anytime, collectively, men say women have no rights, they don't have any. And that's that. And there's not a damn thing that they can do about it. So the idea that they can erode the patriarchy or remove the patriarchy or in some way get away from the patriarchy to be strong, independent women is nonsense. They're just always appealing to the benevolence of men. Always. And so I don't even understand what the purpose is of the vote for women. What is it? We can literally, via force, take it whenever we want anyway. What is the point here?
Well, I would imagine the point is to include the voice of half the...
So what's his argument then? What skin in the game would women have other than babies? If men get sent off to war, and that is a duty, then women must have babies. That is a duty. Is he going to grant women, is this framework, I haven't seen it. Is he granting women the right to vote based on how many babies they have? Is there like a number? Is that where he's going with that? I have no idea where
Count
he's going
Chad the Impaler donated $5. Planet Leader would spend 5 months in neighborhood and 1 month at each of 7 levels of government.
You're going
no
in on
money in
this.
elections and no out-of-touch politicians.
How are you scaling that up nationally though? You just keep going? Each of the 7 levels of government, no money in elections. Okay, I see.
population, which is naturally set on different priorities to those of men. And since we live in a society which is half female...
Hold on, I want to see what argument he makes
It would be worthwhile to include their perspective in how we make decisions.
Why does voting...
Because it affects them as much as it affects us.
Let me ask you a question. Are you aware that in the United States, we abolished alcohol?
For a period of time. I've seen some movies about how that went.
Who got that amendment passed?
I don't know.
Women.
Okay. Oh, no. If you want to have an argument about our disagreements with how women choose to vote...
No. They couldn't vote.
Oh, I see. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Mm-hmm. They couldn't vote.
But
they still got that amendment passed.
Okay.
The idea that...
Yeah. It's same with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? the huge influence that women have, they basically got zero tolerance DUI legislation across practically the United States because of the power women have culturally. So Mothers Against Drunk Driving, as an organization, managed massive cultural change in society. It wasn't voting that got that to happen. I see his argument.
Women did not have influence or do not have influence or don't have moral influence on society because they can't vote is stupid.
So what's wrong with formalizing that in the form of a vote?
Well, I just told you, the very idea.
Yeah, it would change nothing. It just dilutes the power of a vote. It causes race to the bottom again. Then our politicians have to appeal directly to women. And if they appeal directly to women, that means they must appeal. It's a zero-sum game. They must appeal against men. Because in order for a woman to get what she wants, let's say abortion or certain marriage rights, then it pits her against the man. So we have a system that's created by default, by splitting the vote, it pits men against women politically and then socially. And then we have a low birth rate again. Another factor that causes lower birth rates, splitting the vote, ironically, right? That's the argument you would make in that situation, is that now the political wedge against men versus women pits them in an adversarial position against one another. And when two groups are vying for power, it's zero sum.
That women, well, like, let's start with this.
So then you could see it in the divorce courts, colleges, how they're majority women now. Women have a bunch of like abuse shelters that men don't. Women have a bunch of rights, or I wouldn't even say rights, but privileges. Fuck privileges. Women have access to resources that society provides them, like, the domestic abuse hotline, women only scholarships just for being women, women only XYZ just for being women. That is a result of some of this political influence that women are holding. And that is to the detriment of men. Okay.
Do you want women to be able to get drafted in the military?
I personally don't, no.
Why?
Why? Because I've never really thought about it, but it's just an instinctive reaction, actually. I'd have to think about the exact reason, but I just don't think combat is what men do, I guess. It's a very simplistic way of saying it. And
Sure.
there'll be women who I can kick your ass, and there are women like that, right?
Agreed. But not generally.
What I am not against women serving in the military if that's what they choose to do.
Yeah, but what about the draft, though?
But I don't think they should be compelled to, no.
But men
Why?
should.
I think in some circumstances, yes. Like when the survival of the country is at stake.
So women get a privilege men don't get?
Sure. Why,
And
men
so-
get certain privileges
But,
too.
so why do they have equal rights? No? What privileges? Name a single privilege men get that women don't have access to. What?
You mean legislative?
Anything. Like literally
What, in
anything.
life?
Any aspect, whether it be governmental, social, women have all the privilege.
All the
Please don't say something stupid like walking alone at night. God, please don't say that. Like a man could just walk home alone at night, and that's a privilege. That's like the one the leftists and the liberals use all the time.
privilege.
Oh, yeah. Hey, when the Titanic goes down, who gets on the lifeboat?
Yeah, but that's a very narrow context. Well, who dies in childbirth,
okay.
right? Like, I mean, come on, we're different, and we
Almost no women die in childbirth anymore.
some still do.
Sure. But I mean,
And childbirth is optional. First of all, you can choose to have kids. You can't choose to not be drafted. If your nation's under threat, you have to fight. You could choose not to pop a kid out. Unless the state forced it as a civic duty. By law, you must have kids. Then if the choice is taken away from you, you're on equal footing with the man, and now you get to vote. That'd be fair. That's a fair system.
some people die.
They're just like, I mean, there's probably more women that die in
die.
childbirth in America than people who die on the Titanic in the modern
Yeah,
age,
is
right?
childbirth avoidable? You just don't have
Yes.
sex, right?
Yeah, he got him again.
No, but
Yep.
what I'm saying is there are outcomes that are better for men in life and for women, and that's a fundamental difference between men and women.
As there's better outcomes for men in life. What? Like what that women don't have? There's better outcomes for men in life, such as earning power. But that's down to the individual and their interest. Are we saying women are at a disadvantage because they have to have families so they can't go to work as long? But isn't it a privilege to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mother? That's what the stay-at-home mothers say. It's a privilege to not have to go to work. So the argument in society is what? Everybody's bitching about the fact that we need a dual income household and that it's a privilege. You hear the argument from leftist women, oh, well, those conservative women that say they're staying at home to raise their baby, they're privileged to have a man that earns enough money so that she doesn't have to work. So then being a stay-at-home mom is a privilege. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm talking about privilege.
Yeah.
Can you give me any privilege at all?
A damp 911 donated $5. So the current system causes competition between men and women? Low
Yes.
birth rates? Low marriages, high divorce, etc. How does this change? Systemic competition? This is interesting to me.
Yeah, you see, the moment you gave women the right to vote, you put them in direct competition with men. So that's true. You would have to reconstruct the nuclear household where the man is the head, the woman and the man basically vote as one household. It's a household vote. You would have to institute policies from the government that gives people, say, a low to no interest rate loan for a home to start a family. So you make starting a family easy, say on a 0 interest or maybe 1%, something very minor. You could institute some policy like, okay, 4 kids, we wipe your loan. 1 kid gives you 25% off, or simply put, let's just say taxes paid. If you have 6 kids, 0 taxes, you don't get taxed anymore. So you incentivize. If you can give people the incentive, your outcome is very simple to plot out. So if the incentive is I have 6 kids and I get a house paid off, plus I pay no more income tax, everybody's going to want to have 6 kids. Also, the stipulation is you must be married and stay together. You cannot get divorced. If you get divorced, you and your wife are now on the hook for the loan of the house, and you will get a penalty where you'll pay an extra 5 or 10% in taxes yearly. If you do that, then you can get people to have kids, because you don't want to. So single motherhood is what we don't want. So single motherhood, you could eliminate by simply not having an incentive for it anymore. Anybody that's a single mother, you could penalize through taxes or take away some form of welfare or something that helps them survive. You're going to have to foot the bill yourself. For the strong and independent that have their own jobs and would like to work and not depend on a man, you will do so at a penalty. You're no longer supported by the state by default. So you can then begin crafting a nation through policies like that, through those kinds of incentives. Yeah. And then again, you would start to see people naturally coalesce with their own, because who do people marry? Fucking is something completely different. But if you incentivize people to get married, guess who they're going to get married to? Most likely people in their own in-group because of preferences. And so you're going to get the outcome you want anyway. And then if you take away entitlements from the degenerates, those that don't produce for society, and you only give entitlements to those that pay in, there you go.
That men have, that women don't. Whereas I can give you tons of privileges that women have that men don't. That's what I'm asking.
Privilege. Well, I mean, the privilege concept outside the legislative framework is a difficult one.
Even inside of it. I'm asking for both, either. Any, in fact.
I don't have the data on all this stuff, but I would assume there are contexts in which men are more likely to be employed for a certain thing because they're more likely to be perceived as authoritative, as leaders, things like that. Although that has changed with the kind of woke agenda.
Yeah, DEI changed that. Okay, I could give you an example where women have privilege. The Titanic, it's sinking. Who gets off the ship? Women and children. Why? Because the virtue of being a woman grants you privilege. Why? Because you have babies and you need to take them. And who stays and dies? Men. So that's not even on a war discussion with the draft. That's just a societal privilege, one of many that women enjoy.
The last 10 years.
And it works both ways. Like, for instance, preschool teachers, I would assume that people would vastly prefer that their kid go to a woman, right?
Yep.
So it seems like that privilege is striped across the board. So, like, why is it that women get all of the equality, right, but also get all the privilege? That doesn't seem right to me. That seems like it's backwards. So, like, I'm still waiting to hear from anybody ever. What are these privileges men have over women versus what women have over men? So if you can go and you can be drafted, you can be sent off to war, right? And women can't, but they can vote to send you off to war. How is that not something which fundamentally needs to be addressed immediately? that seems to me like it's completely lopsided and it's giving one class of people a significant privilege over another.
So if we allowed women to be drafted, you'd be happy with them having them?
Well, see, now we come into pragmatic problems, though. The reason that you said earlier, I'm against women being drafted, is because they can't really serve in combat roles. Only in support roles, which draftees of men would have to serve in combat roles. The reason women don't do well in combat roles is because, well, driving tanks is hard work. It takes muscles. And you got to, run the shells, and you have to carry hundreds of pounds of equipment with you, and you have to do all of this type of thing. And generally speaking, women aren't equipped for it, which is why we've never had a female Navy SEAL to date, even though they've been trying for like 25 years. We still haven't had a single one.
And the Pentagon tried. I remember covering a video where they spent tens of millions of dollars seeing if all female units, mixed group units, mixed gender units, and all male units, how they performed against each other. All male units constantly destroyed all the metrics. The mixed group was the next worst, and the all female units were the absolute worst. Whenever you introduced women in combat, you degraded the combat effectiveness of the unit. Period. And believe me, the Pentagon spent a lot of money trying to shoehorn women into combat roles. If anybody wants to make money off having more soldiers, more bodies for war, it's the Department of War. And they couldn't even prove, despite everything that they tried, that introducing females into combat roles was a benefit. It wasn't.
A damp 911 donated $5.
Yeah,
Do you
we
think that
spent
would
millions.
end hypergamy in women? Or do you think that would widen the already high rift between men and women? Because women would still go after the highest value men, which would bring us back to where we are or worse.
No, it would end hypergamy because the stipulation is you have to be married, right, for the benefits. So you're going to make life harder for yourself. It's almost like a bachelorette/bachelor tax. But the tax is completely optional because all you had to do is get married and have kids, and then your life is made much easier for yourself. And then you would be shamed socially anyways because people take advantage of incentives that are given to them by nature. So you're going to look like a complete retard in society if you're the only one that's not married, and she'll look like a complete retard by going the hard way and not getting married and having kids with somebody. So most people will settle down and have kids with somebody to earn the free house. It's not free because it takes 4 kids, and then no personal income taxes because it takes 6 kids. So then we create 6 more future taxpayers, 6 more workers, 6 more people, bodies that could defend the country in a war. Because capital is worth, human capital is still worth something. The vibrance, the economy, the sway of a nation is very dependent on its population size. So you need to be a big country to hold sway and power still. Yeah. It would completely eliminate all the debauchery and degeneracy because there would be no benefit otherwise. What are you going to do? Go it out alone by yourself on an individual level and try to play the game on hard mode? Nobody, by nature of how we are humans, plays the game on hard mode. So, but we don't have any incentives. You know what playing the hard mode is right now? Getting married and having kids. Our incentives are reversed, which is why people don't have kids today. The incentive today is to be greedy, to be selfish, lonely, not have kids and spend money because they cost a fuck ton, not get married and lose half of your shit. If you reversed all the incentives, bro, people are going to do nothing but get married and have kids. But the governments are too fucking stupid to do that. They think if they hand you like $5,000 or a $2,000 bonus or a tax credit of $2,000 for the year, what the fuck is $2,000 for an entire year going to do for anyone? We need real incentives. I can't buy a house. I'm not raising a kid in a fucking apartment. I can't afford a wife. It's hard enough by myself. So people need real incentives. But governments
At
won't do
Anthony
that.
Man 8008 donated $2. Is Theo Von Orzor an antichrist? Get baptized.
All right. Thank you.
Can't do the job. Now, what people always do is point to outliers, right? Well, some women can do it. That's true. Some can't, but in general, they can't.
I guess, but when you vote for a government, you don't vote whether to go for war or not. It's the government that makes the decision. There's plenty of people who voted for Donald Trump and are absolutely disgusted that he's started a war with Iran.
I thought government was force. We all agreed on that, right? Government's force. Like, ultimately, that's what it reduces to. When you say you're voting for force, and you're voting for force use. Why does the United States have a massive military? Well, because we're going to use it. That's why we're going to use it. And why do we have a draft? Well, because we're going to use that too, and have used it. And so the thing is that a lot of what we're voting on is force. We're trying to protect our nation from all foreign threats, right? That's why we have this massive military. That's why we have a draft. That's why we have the potential for mass combat. That's why we entered into World War II. right? It's why we entered, and there was a draft then. And we're going to institute a draft at some point again, likely. It's more likely than not. At some point, we're going to do it. So the thing is like, why do women get exempt from that? And if it's the case that you don't want them exempt from that, why is it that they don't go right to the front lines then and battle it out, like draftees have at least the potential to? Well,
right. And where were the boss babes in Afghanistan then when they were taking the women's rights away when the Taliban got back into power? For all the kicking and screaming they're doing in the West about women's power, girl boss, putting women first, the sisterhood, they did nothing for the sisterhood. And all the Taliban controlled Afghanistan. They were mum on that, completely silent. They're completely mum on the Muslim invasion in Europe of all the girls being grabbed by grooming gangs and completely, just sexually assaulted for years. Completely mum and silent on that. So where is the sisterhood? Where is their fighting ability? Where's their prowess? Where are the units? Where are the women's special forces? Where's the push to save those girls? There isn't. You see how quiet they are? Because they have to what? Appeal to men. You have to get a man to go in there and kill the Taliban. You have to get a man to go in there and reopen the colleges. You got to get a man to go in there and stop the bad guys. It's fucking weird how that works, isn't it?
well, that's a fundamental privilege that is not being addressed, right? And yet women have the vote. Doesn't seem like they care too much about men's rights, even though we're supposed to care about theirs. Seems like they have a lot of privilege in society.
Isn't that fair, Andrew? I think a lot of women care about men's rights, actually. Look, there's a vocal minority which say that they don't and they hate men. And look, we know those type of women. But let's be honest, a lot of women care about men's rights. They do.
Give me like 3 of the most prominent ones you can think of.
Who care about men's rights? Well, I'm trying to think now, but...
Got him. I'm trying to think now. The fact that you have to think about it tells you there isn't really any. There are no women out there in the mainstream right now just purely advocating for men's rights without doing but a real man. But what about the women, though? No woman is advocating purely for the men because it goes against them. Purely. Remember, it's a zero-sum game. If you're granting men more power politically, it means you take it away from women. Women will never vote to have their power taken away. Name one, bro. Name one. I don't know one. I don't know any woman on the national stage that is advocating for men's rights whatsoever. Not one woman that's saying, hey, men need reproductive rights too. You're going to have both parents sign or both parents are going to have to sign in order for an abortion to happen. Like the woman can't unilaterally decide to abort a baby because it took a man and a woman to make that. Men have no reproductive rights. Why does the woman automatically get the kid? That's old ways of thinking. It doesn't mean a mother automatically is better, although for a baby, she definitely is. But why does the court automatically grant a woman custody? If it's not even a baby, what if there's a divorce and the kid's 10 years old? Why does the woman get him? Shouldn't they be battling it out based on, equal metrics? Who earns more? Because most people both work today, dual income households. And if it's not by earning, then what is it? Where are these discussions happening in our system today that are led by women solely benefiting men? I could think of a bunch of fucking homo-ass male leftists that are arguing happily for the crumb of pussy against the interests of men on behalf of women. There's a bunch of male feminists that advocate openly, say that men are an issue and if men would go away. It's crazy seeing that kind of shit. Nora Vincent is dead. She lived inside a man's body for just a little bit and that shit made her fucking depressed.
Had feminists on the show who are feminists, like Louise Perry, for example. They're a different type of feminists to the idiots that you'd be spending your time arguing with, but the people who have a very sensible view of these things. There's lots of people like that. By the way, coming back, not to change subject, but coming back to your point,
And the only time I've ever seen for women to start advocating for men is, funny enough, when they have boys of their own. It's only after they have boys that women wake up from the feminist indoctrination and go, oh shit, hold on. The world my boys have to grow in is way too gynocentric. We need to fix this. Oh, but it was girl power up until now. It affects you directly and your son. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? That's why I don't trust women that don't have any kids, especially boys, to talk about men's rights. It's all bullshit.
One of the things that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is, for example, yes, it's true, men serve in combat roles.
Yeah. Having a son is like post-nut clarity for women on feminism. It's true. It really is.
Women don't, but women bear children and men don't. And there's a huge
That's a good
disadvantage in all sorts of societal outcomes from a materialistic career perspective to spending the time to bear the child and then to nurture that child, right? So
What? Like what?
Well,
that's backwards.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
The gender pay gap discussion, which is kind of stupid in a lot of areas, is actually a reflection of the fact that there is a motherhood gap in lifetime earnings, which is if you're...
Wow, really, dude? The gender pay gap, that doesn't exist? Because when you look at it per hour, they get paid the same. But his argument will be, but they have to take care of the kid and stay at home, so less hours work, so they earn less. So technically his argument is sound in that sense, but isn't staying at home a privilege, like we said earlier?
A woman...
Well, I wonder if Andrew's going to get him with that.
Who bears children and
take
looks
more
after them.
time off. And
you take time off, then over the course of your life...
Less overtime.
Yeah, you will earn less. So that would be one disadvantage that I could give you, where women contribute a different thing. So you might say, well, men get drafted, women carry children.
It's not a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So, oh no, they have to stay at home. Oh, and raise their kids. What's the disadvantage again? The man's...
Oh no, the men get drafted. Where's the disadvantage?
They die.
You fucking, yeah, you go to war and you get killed, bro. You get droned to the knee. Have you seen enough videos in Ukraine about, Russians and Ukrainians looking up the last second they're getting fucking blown in half? Oh no, men are going to war, and what happens? They fucking die. I'm sorry, I don't want an 80-pound rucksack in a fucking drone warfare trench environment shooting at fucking tanks and drones and robot dogs, bro. Oh no, what would you pick? Stay at home with the kid? Or that? What?
Okay.
They get shot in the face.
Yeah, and women earn less money over the course of their lives. And have
fuck. How is that an equivalence? One gets shot in the face, one earns less money over their lifetime. Oh, fuck, bro. Which one would you choose? You have a choice to earn less money. You don't have a choice to get shot in the face if they draft you. We're back to square one again.
There's a risk to their life, potentially.
What they have instead is they now don't have to pay for daycare, and they can depend on somebody else's income, which is taking care of them. Oh, that's terrible. Oh my God. You get to stay at home, and you don't have to do anything except raise your kid. Wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're putting their kids on a bus almost every morning to go to a public school. They don't even have them for 8 hours out of the day.
I didn't even think of that.
So, like, how is this?
Got him. Fucking got him right there. I forgot about that public schooling. So the kids are gone for most of the day where other adults are watching your kid. You're not even teaching your kids. It's not like they're homeschooling. You have to watch them every waking moment, every day. So then she's dicking around the house with her fucking crotch up, blasting her vag while you're at work. What's she doing? Enjoying her little fucking wine and smut books? Get the fuck out of here. I forgot about that.
The most incredibly difficult job ever, or in some way requires them to have they're the ones who are privileged. There's an old comedian who made this joke, and I agree with it. Any job you can do in your pajamas can't be that hard.
Bill Burr, favorite comedian of ours. But
okay, it can't be that hard.
He was joking though, knowing Bill. And
well, Bill Burr turned out into a fucking major cuck.
Now that he's married with kids, I think his perspective's changed somewhat. But I guess,
I'm married with kids.
Right, you're married. You watched your wife carry the baby or babies inside her for 9 months. Like, that's a big deal.
Sure.
So I guess that to me would be one example versus the hypothetical risk of once every 50 years you get drafted.
In a 2-income household, it's a privilege that women get to stay at home. It's a privilege.
But we're not talking about staying at home. We're talking about carrying the child.
Yeah, but the child has to be raised.
And most women in America then go back to work.
Yeah.
At a disadvantage, as we just
Well, that's not a disadvantage, though, right? They don't have to have children. You have to go out for a draft.
Well, women do have to have children for our society to reproduce.
Well, they're not.
That's a different argument, though. Biologically speaking, a woman has to have children for the society to continue, but they're not mandated to by the government. That's the difference. See, you're mandated to get drafted and go to war, fucker. So what argument is that?
So,
well, I mean, they are.
I mean, they're definitely
Your wife
not.
is, my wife is.
Yeah, but what's the birth rate?
Oh my God, he's doing like the liberal thing. Well, my wife did and your wife did. Yeah, okay. And Andrew's getting him again. So what is the fucking birth rate then? What's that about?
We're under replacement levels.
I know, but you're talking about a side argument. What I'm saying is, in a society that wants to reproduce, men have to go to war and women have to bear the children.
That's true.
Right. And are you going to implement that duty and mandate it under law? So you're going to force women into childbirth?
True.
And so why don't we just say, well, the men go to war, the women have children, that's why they both
When are they going to start having the children part of this?
I mean, my wife's doing it.
Yeah, but
your wife's doing it, so shouldn't they have the right to vote?
Bro. Come on with that shit. What is that argument? Well, my wife is. Well, is your wife going to fuck you 1 billion times and give birth to fucking enough kids so that America repopulates? What are you on?
Bruh. You're not fucking fighting war, are you?
Men, well, but
nor am I.
Is there the potential for that through the draft.
Well, like just the potential for them to have children. You say they're not. Well, I could say you're not being drafted. Same thing.
No, you can't. It's no. There is no equivalency, and I can point out the distinction.
Yeah, the compulsion thing.
The compulsion, yes.
But for a society to work, men have to go to war and women have to have kids.
I agree,
Yes.
but you need to get to the they're having kids part before you can tell me that there's some equivalency to men being drafted, because they're not having kids.
And you're not being
Exactly.
drafted.
But I can be compelled because I've signed up for the draft. Where have they signed up to have kids?
I think this is a...
Got him. That's it. That's the argument. Got him. So if I'm legally compelled, it is a duty, then women must be legally compelled, and that's their duty. Now we can talk about equal rights in voting. Got him. Got him. There's his face. Got his ass. Look at that. That's the look of got him. Got him. Ha! Bruh. Got his ass.
I think it's not. I think that the idea that they're having kids part before you can tell me that there's some equivalency to men being drafted, because they're not having kids.
And you're not being drafted.
But I can be compelled because I've signed up for the draft. Where have they signed up to have kids?
See?
I think this is a splitting hairs argument.
No,
I
it
think it's
isn't.
not. I think that the idea that my
a
children
very
can be
important-
drafted, or I could be drafted even at my age because perhaps I have knowledge which would be useful to the United States military. They could do it in 5 seconds. They could bring me on. They in Ukraine, they draft 60-year-old men. Okay? If they need you, they're going to take you. And you can peel potatoes or whatever it is they need, right? Women do not have to do that. They do not have to sign up for selective service.
Yeah.
They're not compelled and will never be
It's asymmetrical
compelled.
in that way.
They can avoid pregnancy, though, right? And if you're saying that they have a duty to have children.
I'm not saying they have a duty.
But you have a duty to go fight a war if you get drafted.
Correct.
Oh, okay. And this is fair how?
That's
Where
the
do we get to the
asymmetry.
fairness?
Well, not everything has to look exactly symmetrical. But your argument initially was, where's a privilege that men enjoy and women don't? Well, I would argue, in a functioning society where we want to reproduce, women end up with the burden of childbearing and child rearing in a way that men don't.
So he's trying to equivalate. He's trying to make the argument that in totality, a woman giving birth and raising a kid over multiple years is somehow equal in value to getting sent off in war and dying. So his distinction is, okay, the birth itself is not a problem. It's the fact that the time investment holds far more value and sacrifice than it is going to war. But again, is that going to be a duty? Because not all women will have kids.
I think it's a fairly simple and obvious argument, right?
And yet they're privileged when it comes to custody and divorces. They're privileged when it comes to child support. They're privileged when it comes to alimony. They're privileged when it comes to all of these things. They have every advantage when it comes.
Yeah, how does he equate these? I don't know. That's not. Is that arguing insincerity? Because that doesn't seem like it is. Just being real here. You can't equate childbirth plus watching a kid for multiple years as having the same impact in society as being sent off and going off to war, yet only one grants you the right to vote. What?
Comes to having the child. And so it's like,
It's
no.
a different argument. What I'm saying is the burden of bearing the child is
Okay.
uniquely with women,
So the burden of going to war and dying is
in the same
uniquely
way that
men,
the
yeah?
burden of fighting in war is uniquely with men.
Uh-huh.
So it's an ontological argument. The nature of woman is to have children. Nature of men is to go to war.
Right, and so...
Then the
and to-
woman needs to be fulfilling her nature then, right?
Well, my woman is, and so is
Exactly.
yours,
Yes, but
right?
most
So
women
I would
aren't.
insist for my woman to have the right to vote on that basis, that she's contributing, frankly, at this point, way more than I am.
All right, so he wants his woman the right to vote because she's contributed and had kids. Okay, cool. So the argument now changes. I think if Andrew catches them in this, is that, okay, then me and your wives get to vote because they've done their duty and had kids. And so, but no other woman gets to vote until she does the same thing. Is that fair? Can you equate that with us going to war then? Because he's placing the fact that he can be drafted on the same level, because this is how he sees it on a personal level, with his wife raising his kids. He sees the work his wife is putting in, the work it took for her to birth the child, and he says that in his eyes has an equivalent value to going to war in the trenches. Okay, fine. If you have a wife, if a woman is a wife and she gives birth, then okay, then she gets to vote, right? Is that the line?
Drafting's collective, right?
Yeah.
So then the duty's collective.
Yeah.
Then why isn't childbirth?
He went the collective route. Okay. And then that also works. I went the exclusion route. Got him.
I don't understand. You're saying for women to have the right to vote, they must have a duty to bear children.
Yeah. Well, if you're
Yeah.
saying that there's a duty for men to go to war, and you're saying that the reason that they do is because that's their ontological nature, and the ontological nature of women is to have children, okay, I can concede that argument. Well,
Yeah. That's the logical extension of your argument, your own argument.
We just ran into a problem then, because if one is collective and then the other is collective, why do I have to fulfill my duty, but they don't have to fulfill theirs?
Well, I never said that I thought it was a collective duty for women to have children.
But it's a collective duty for men to go.
Yeah.
Well, then again, that sounds like privilege.
Yeah. In the same way that fire safety in your own house is a personal thing that you do.
Got his ass, bro. He got him. He's trying now to walk back and find like a way out of the logical conundrum. It's illogical what he's arguing.
But if there's a fire in the neighborhood, it's a collective duty of the neighbors to get together and try and put it out, right? There's a different, something can
Do
be...
you go to jail if you don't do that?
Yeah. Look, I agree with you. The compulsion element is different, but not everything is exactly the same.
I'm not even asking, like, I agree with you. Getting drafted and having babies is different. We can agree with that, right?
Both important though, right? For
Both
society.
important. But the idea here that we are talking about, which should be equal, is the idea of duty. If we're talking about the
rights. Yeah, duty and rights. In an equal society means you have to have equal skin in the game, even if it's asymmetrical. A woman can't fight and go to war. That's perfectly fine. No one's saying they should. A man can't give birth. We know that. That's perfectly fine. It's understood. But they hold equal value in the eyes of nation forming, maintaining a nation. A woman must have duty of giving birth and having kids, and a man has a duty of going off to war, fighting and dying, if called upon. That grants you both equal rights, aka voting, the right to vote.
compellence of you. If your country drafted you, even if you're in terrible shape, and they told you, look, we're in a collective war effort and we need you, and you're going to come in here and just cook food because our soldiers need food, right? Are you going to go do it?
I'd do it voluntarily, to be honest, but yeah.
Yeah, you would do it.
I wouldn't be very useful, but yeah.
Now,
Terrible cook, terrible
now
soldier.
you're compelled to do that.
Right.
And part of your duty and honor is that you have to go do it.
Sure.
I agree with this, okay? But if we have a compelling duty that men have an ontological function, only men can do this, therefore they should, why does that duty not apply the other way? That to me is inconsistent, and it's a hole in the worldview. It makes no sense to me.
I agree with you, it's inconsistent, but that's because the acts are not equivalent. Like, not everything is the same.
Right, but they hold similar value for each gender. He's stuck, dude. He can't walk this back.
I think
He
in
got
order
his
for
ass.
the defense of the realm, so to speak, you'll have to compel all the men to fight in certain very...
This is the liberal worldview that's coming apart. You know, like they think men and women. He's still very liberal, although he's considered conservative, but he has very liberal views still. He concedes that women can't fight because they're not as adept at fighting. He concedes that men have an obligation. It's mandated that they go to war. But then when you try to build an equivalent argument of saying, well, what's the equivalent for women? Well, clearly it's child rearing and childbirth. Well, okay, if those are the equivalent for women because it's asymmetrical because the genders are different, you're not going to say war for war, you know, body for body, woman for man. Clearly, it's logical that you simply say, well, then women must give birth and raise children. That's the logical trap you got.
Where
to
does those
learn.
men come from?
Women. Right.
So then one duty's being fulfilled?
No, I'm all with you in terms of we need a higher birth rate. I just don't think duty is the way to get there. Anyway, we've
Wait, couldn't you just, I'll just wrap up.
Yeah, it's just
but
it's
couldn't
a time
you,
thing.
when you say duty,
Yeah.
can't you instill the ideas of duty and honor even absent legislation, through propaganda, things like that?
Sure.
Yeah. Those are the routes that I would be more apt to move towards.
Well, yeah, to be honest with you, man, this is the thing is like, actually a lot of this discourse I think is misguided because the vast majority of women actually do want to have kids, but there are circumstances in their life which make them less likely to do so.
I agree.
And so if we, I mean, you made this point yourself, there are countries, they're not having as many results as people would like to think, unfortunately, places like Hungary. But I think...
Yeah, because the policies are shit. It's not they're throwing money at a problem and it's not even enough money. Giving people a couple $1,000 does nothing. It doesn't solve the core foundational issues. Getting raped in court, how expensive it is to buy a house. Taxes are overbearing in Europe, for example, in Hungary and all these other places, like the 50% tax rate that they have. You lose half of your income. The income's already too low anyways. No.
The way to get people to have more kids is to get obstacles out of their way, not to compel them.
Also to empower them to be able to nest and live on a single one-person household income and give them the ability to get out of taxes by having more kids and help them get a loan, not have to deal with the banks, but a loan that gives them some nice standard high-quality housing for them to start their family. That shit would do it. I guarantee you because it's already been done and it was successful. You just have to read about who in history did that. I'll name you one. I won't. Fuck it. You go research this shit yourself.
System. Like, here's your ticket, have 2 kids. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to work, but it seems we agree on that. Anyway, Andrew, it's been great having you on.
Okay. Very interesting, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for the lobbying. This was an incredible episode, actually. Constantine would never say those things I just said, of course, for obvious reasons. Guess who came up with a lot of those ideas? It's their version of the Antichrist. Can you imagine him advocating for policies like that? Come on.
A damp 911 donated $5. How long has the human race been arguing these same points? So until this is answered, we cannot move forward as a species. Again, call me naive, but shouldn't we be beyond this by now?
Yeah, but that's what happens when you give more voices power. See, if you concentrate voting in the hands of a few who've earned it, you don't have to deal with this kind of shit. Every once in a while, someone comes along and simps and goes, you know what? We're being too strict. Give those people the right to vote too. You know what? We're being way too strict. Tradition, the values and guardrails, you know what? Tear them down. Let women vote. You know what? This is what happens in times of peace. Unfortunately, we get soft as people. It only takes like 3 generations. So, it is what it is, boys. Anyways, superb stream.